Good evening. This is the Council Rock School Board of School Directors meeting for February 15th, 2018. As is traditional for us, we will call the beginning of the meeting. I'll ask everyone to rise, both for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our national anthem. Tonight will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Council Rock North's Alyssa Bernstein.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaked. And the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? For the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This is Rhythm of the Rock. This is Council Rock North's pop acapella group. We have a couple after-school groups, this being one of them, and we are getting ready for acapella at the Rock, which is coming up on 7th. So that is pretty exciting. We have been selling that out the last several years. So if you are a member of the community and looking to get tickets, you should do so now at acapellaattherock.org, because they won't be around for much longer. I can tell you that I think we've sold at least half of it, well over half of the house already, and we're well out of the event. But we've been working hard on some tunes. So this is a tune that we've worked on at the beginning of the year. It's called Let Me Love You. It's going to feature Noah Pelham, vocal percussion, and Alyssa Bernstein as the soloist. Here we go, Let Me Love You.
Never let you go, 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 I'll never let you go. Let me love you, let me love you. Let me love you, let me love you, let me love you.
All right, we hope to see you on Untitled Rock, April 7th. Come join us. 11 high school groups, and we have a group coming from Italy, cluster. Very, very exciting. And we have world-class clinicians coming out from all over the country, actually coming to work with the kids during the festival during the day. So they'll be working with all of the students. And literally the biggest names of acapella are coming to our school on the 7th of April for quite an exciting day. So if you haven't been a part of that, come check it.
Mr. Williams, thank you.
Yes.
It's always an exciting group you have there. In college, there actually are quite a few a cappella groups now, are there not?
Oh yeah, lots of.
Have your former graduates gone on to participate?
Well, what's interesting about it is many go to and they have participated, and some go to really, really good groups and they really enjoy it. Others end up being the leaders of those groups, and they always say the Council Rock experience has been a really good one. So we're pretty excited about that, knowing that we're able to kind of do a little bit of teaching in this genre. So I'm excited about it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I think that's a tribute to your work with the group, and thank you all for coming to sing to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
As we go to do roll call, I just do want to make the following commentary. Mr. Cox is away with family, and we are joined today with our solicitor, will be Joanne Summers, to my left. Dr. Frazier, our superintendent, is attending to family business with his family and is away today, and we are joined on my right by Dr. Sue Elliott. And Denise Brooks, one of our board members, is traveling with her family today and will not be in attendance. Ms. Rice, you can do roll call.
Oh, yours.
Albert Jesse,
Here.
Andy Hall,
Here.
Denise,
Traveling.
Mark Tyler,
Here.
Mary Ann McKee,
Here.
Ed Tate,
Here.
Wendy Thomas,
Here.
Michael Colmore,
Here.
Jerry Jones.
Present. With that, we're going to look to Mrs. McCarthy to introduce her Student Advisory Board, coming to us from Council Rock North.
Good evening, everyone. We're happy to be here this evening. We switched up our order a little bit. We're going to begin this evening with Angela Batchelor, who's representing MBIT, Middle Bucks Institute of Technology, and she will be followed by Lexi Genicasi, who is representing Sloan. So I'd like to introduce her to you this evening for the first time ever. Finn Thompson is next, and you all know Finn. He is our 12th grade representative. 11th grade representative, Jake Cohen. 10th grade representative, Veda Alam. And last but not least, Baruni Polyam, representing 9th grade. So Angela, take it away.
Hello, my name is Angela Batchelor. I'm a junior at Council Rock North, and I'm a level 200 commercial art and design student at Middle Bucks Institute of Technology. MBIT hosted the Skills USA District 2 competitions on January 30th and 31st. There were 400 students from 8 career and technical schools in Bucks, Delaware, and Montgomery counties, competing in more than 40 skills competitions. The competitions included automotive, welding, electrical, cosmetology, early childhood education, crime scene investigation, information technology services, web design, public speaking, job interviews, and technical drafting. The Skills USA district competitions provided an opportunity for students to demonstrate skills mastered in their technical programs. Individuals from business, industry, and education were on hand to judge the various competitions. Middle Bucks competitors participated in 32 competitions and earned a total of 32 medals, 17 gold, 9 silver, and 6 bronze medals. Our gold medal winners will now represent District 2 at the Pennsylvania Skills USA State Competition in April at the Hershey Lodge and Conference Center. From Council Rock North, James Burns won second place in automotive maintenance, and Cecilia Roach won first place in the Health Occupations Knowledge Bowl. The spring semester for the Bucks County Community College Partnership has begun. The course offered this semester is Introduction to Entrepreneurship, and there are currently 18 students enrolled in the class. Middle Bucks will be hosting middle school students from the 4 sending districts who are interested in shadowing in one of our technical programs. Visits are planned through January and February, and with 137 students already scheduled to shadow. Our cosmetology students held a fundraiser on February 12th to benefit the sister of our residential construction teacher who recently lost her home in a fire. The cosmetology students opened the salon to the community in the evening and were able to raise close to $700 for this worthwhile cause. A reminder to the students interested in attending Middle Bucks next school year that the deadline to apply for the 2018-2019 school year is March 15th. I would like to remind the community that they can learn more about the latest happenings at MBIT by liking us on Facebook, following us on Instagram and Twitter, and viewing our videos on YouTube. I look forward to reporting to you at the next school board meeting. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Lexi Jeniksy. I'm representing the Sloan School. Sloan has recently entered the second semester, and students are working really hard in new courses like gender studies, meteorology, sports and entertainment marketing, and entrepreneurship. We've also been continuing to work hard in our year-long courses such as biology, world history, American Civ, math courses like geometry, algebra 1, and algebra 2. I'm working on vocabulary and short stories in our English classes. Another class that we attend every day is group dynamics, where we've been learning about the 7 habits of highly effective teens and how to cope with problems and issues that arise in our lives. The class of 2018 is also starting a transition class where we meet weekly to learn about post-high school living, which includes like enrolling in college and other post-secondary schooling. We also have representatives from Penn Community Bank come and give a presentation, and later this semester we're going to be going to a local branch of the bank in Newtown. We also have a presentation scheduled from a State Farm representative to discuss like insurance and personal stuff like that. We also participated in a few community service activities, including the holiday food drive for Wrightstown Food Cupboard, Martin Luther King Day of Service, and the Holland Middle School Coat Drive. And we also celebrated an Eagles Spirit Day and pep rally with the Achieve program, who we continue to have a really great relationship with. We also have some future activities like an Earth Day celebration and mentorship with elementary school students and a community college visit. I personally have already been accepted to East Stroudsburg, Bloomsburg, and Temple. A lot of other seniors at Sloan have also been making plans to go to college. But I think that no matter what, the staff over at Sloan has done a really great job to prepare us for after high school.
Hey everyone, I hope you had a wonderful holidays and a happy Valentine's Day yesterday. The senior class has finished paying for the senior trip. All Disney payments have been collected and chaperone, plane, and bus groups have been organized. Though still a few months away, Disney will serve as a fantastic culmination of my great's Council Rock North experience. In the meantime, the senior class is still hard at work. As of now, all college applications for both regular and early applicants have been submitted, and mid-year reports have been sent to a variety of colleges across the country. Now is the waiting period. Most of us will hear back from everyone starting at the end of March. As a senior, it has been an incredibly stressful and exciting experience at the same time. Hearing classmates get accepted is always incredibly satisfying,
Hearing rejections is very disappointing, and waiting to hear back from dream schools is torture. However, a sense of finality is beginning to hang over us now that we are second semester seniors. Almost everything we have done for our 12 years in Council Rock has led up to forces that are now, at the very least, outside of our control. The Student Executive Board has been hard at work raising money for charity. In January, North's Got Talent featured 15 different acts and was a very successful event, with around 650 students and community members attending. We raised $2,000 for Love for Life, a Newtown Borough-based charity that raises money for pancreatic cancer research at Penn. SEB is busy planning two of its biggest events of the year. Rockathon is Friday, April 27th, and the Charity Dance is North's most important charity event. It will raise money to support Planacy, a local charity that funds extracurriculars for students in need. On Tuesday, February 27th, we will be holding a fundraiser at the Neshaminy Chipotle from 4 to 8 p.m. Chipotle will donate 50% of profits from customers who mention Council Rock to Rockathon's donation total. We hope to continue to get the word out to the community to raise attendance and our fundraising total. A similar event will occur at Jewel's Thin Crust Pizza in Newtown on Thursday, March 15th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Finally, Mr. CRN, North's male beauty pageant competition, is Wednesday, April 4th. Applications are currently being given to interested guys, and the event will support the charity of the winner's choice. Overall, the senior class in SCB are on a roll, just like the second semester. Thank you, and here's Jake.
Good evening, everyone. It may be 60 degrees outside, but I'm very happy to be back inside this building with you all again to give another update on my class of 2019 and the ongoing academics at North. Let's begin. For my class, the idea of colleges and applying to colleges has been becoming an inevitable reality. Guidance counselors over the past several weeks have been coming into many of our English classrooms to assist us in looking for the colleges we're interested to apply to and to briefly educate us on how the application process is going to work. Although the brunt of this application work will take place in our senior year, many of us found it very helpful to get this feedback ahead of time. Similarly, guidance counselors have been meeting with freshmen, sophomores, and juniors about course selections for the 2018-2019 school year. They've started this process on January 25th and should continue until early March, pulling students briefly out of their classes to discuss what they are recommended for and what they're interested in taking. Right at the beginning of this process on January 25th, students from these grades went to the auditorium for an electives assembly, where one teacher from each subject field presented on the many options in electives that students can take next year. AP exam registrations are also coming up. Students who desire to take these have been required to fill out a Google survey in order to select the exams which they plan on taking in May, and they will pay for these exams by the end of next week. So far, many of the juniors, including myself, plan on taking multiple AP exams, and we are all eagerly anticipating reviewing for these in the months to come. Another very notable accomplishment for juniors has begun: NHS inductions. Students who qualified to be inducted into NHS in the spring were invited to attend a meeting after school on Tuesday with the NHS advisors regarding further application and involvement in NHS. For the students who did not qualify yet, there will also be a fall induction, which will further be addressed later in the year, but I'm very happy for those who have already been on the path to joining this prestigious group. That is all I have for today, and I hope to see you guys in April. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Veda Alam, and I am the Class of 2020 representative. It is hard to believe that already half the year has gone by and that we are well into the third marking period of the school year. Today, I will talk about the sophomore class and some of our clubs. The sophomore class organized and planned the winter dance that took place on Saturday, February 10th. The dance was a huge success with 400 students attending. We had students from each grade come to the dance and had a really good time. We hope this dance continues in the future. Our class officers worked really hard and the dance was a big success because of everyone in student government. Moving on to clubs, today I will talk about FBLA, National Honor Society, and French Club. Future Business Leaders of America, or FBLA, attended regionals this past December. Usually Council Rock North sends about 80 students to regionals, but this year we sent 120 students. North has also been recognized as one of Pennsylvania's top 10 FBLA chapters. We are also one of the most successful FBLA chapters in Pennsylvania. FBLA's dedication and hard work really paid off this year, and they are preparing well for states. As for our honor societies, National Honor Society is giving back this year. NHS has been working in soup kitchens to give back to the community and show the character of a true National Honor Society student. This is also something that we hope to continue. French Club is also being very generous, and they have been sending care packages to Houston to recover from the hurricane. We hope these care packages will help Houston in any way possible and lead to an efficient recovery. One new event North has implemented this year is an assembly honoring 112 students who have had perfect attendance for this first semester. We had students from all 4 grades come to the assembly if they have never been absent for the whole first semester. We had a very good number of students who have had perfect attendance so far this year. These students were awarded a certificate commending their dedication to school. We hope to continue this for the second semester and years to come. Council Rock North has accomplished a lot in the first half of the year and will not be slowing down anytime soon. The class of 2020 and our clubs have been working very hard to achieve success. Thank you for your time and see you in April.
Good evening. My name is Bernie Polium, and I'm the 9th grade representative for Council Rock North Student Administrative Board. We have officially reached the middle of the school year, and the activities at Council Rock North are in full swing. The 9th grade class has definitely settled in and has started becoming avidly involved in Council Rock North sports and extracurriculars. The 9th grade Student Council has also significantly contributed to the school, selling candygrams and raising between $200 to $250 from student purchases. They have also promoted school spirit and attendance of social events through the use of social media, which has been a huge success. Regarding our music department, the jazz season is getting underway as both our concert jazz band and lab bands are beginning to perform in competitions throughout the area. Rhythm of the Rock is also beginning to gear up for a cappella at the Rock on April 7th. The night features 11 high school groups as well as our headliner cluster. It should be an exciting night and tickets will most likely sell out soon. The orchestra is also hard at work preparing for its international trip to Iceland. Council Rock North's theater troupe, Sock and Buskin, has been dedicatedly working to put on an exciting winter play, Noises Off, a show New York Times has called the funniest farce ever. The spring musical has also been cast, and Council Rock North is looking forward to the production of The Mystery of Edwin Drood. Rehearsals are beginning soon, and the show will feature a cast of 26 students and an orchestra pit of 20 students as well. On to recent events from our sports programs. Winter sports were at their peak with wins from basketball, indoor track, swimming, wrestling, bowling, and cheer. Specifically, the boys basketball team ended their season on a high win against Haverford High School with an overall record of 8-14. Girls basketball has also been very successful, ending the regular season with an impressive record of 17-5. The team shares the sole National Conference Championship with Abington and Neshaminy. Senior Becca Margolis surpassed the 1,000-point mark on February 3rd in a game against Mount St. Joseph Academy. The team is the number 8 seed in the District 1 tournament and is awaiting their first game on February 21st at North. In boys track and field, Council Rock North has 11 athletes who qualified for the Meet of Champions and 7 that have qualified for the state meet that is coming up at the end of the month. Regarding girls track and field, the relay team of Daphne Burrell, Kate Donnelly, Sarah Porter, and Bridget Burke set a Council Rock North school record in the sprint medley relay with a time of 4 minutes and 53.97 seconds. Kate Donnelly and Marissa Hugh have also qualified for the Delaware Valley Girls Track Coaches Association's Meet of Champions, which will be hosted this Friday, February 16th. The boys swimming and diving team ended their regular season undefeated in the national conference. This Saturday is the Seoul Championships, which will determine the winner of the conference championship. The girls' swim team has also been very successful, finishing its regular season with an 8-2 record and a 6-0 conference record. They will be swimming their 10th straight conference championship tomorrow night. The wrestling team's record was 12-7 and impressively made it to the quarterfinals of team districts. Council Rock North is especially proud of its seniors, 14 of which who have signed a national letter of intent for Division I and Division II colleges. Overall, Council Rock North's sports teams, music program, and student council have been a very successful and valuable representation of Council Rock North. Thank you.
Wow. You guys are busy.
We've been busy.
So, I don't know now. So, you're already accepted at East Stroudsburg and Finn? And where are you going, Finn? Good. Well, I appreciate your coming out. I have to tell you, Lexi, the history for Sloan School in terms of cooperating with the community and community events is really strong. The first time they assembled at what is now Sale House, they used to go out and shovel the walk for the neighbors nearby, which you really don't get a feel for until you get the letters coming in about how appreciative people are for what we do in the community. And I think you said it very well at the end, which was you really do represent Council Rock in the community. You do it both when you're here, when you're in college, when you're on field trips, the White House, wherever you go. So you guys make an impressive stand. We really do appreciate that. You make us very proud to come before us. So thank you. that, I'll turn to Dr. Elliott, who will be providing us with the
Mr. President.
report this evening.
Just point of order, before we move on, would it be appropriate, and I apologize for not bringing this up earlier, but due to the tragedy in Florida today, would it be appropriate to stand and have a moment of silence for the people that's accounted for? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rupp. Tonight, we are shocked and deeply saddened by the tragic mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. Our thoughts and our prayers are with the students, teachers, their families, and the community as they deal with this horrible act of violence. At this time, I ask that everyone stand and please observe a moment of silence. Thank you very much. We know that parents entrust us with their most precious gifts, their children, every day. And we assure you that we take this seriously, and it is as if they are our own children. At Council Rock, student safety is our top priority. We thank our local and county level officials, including police, firefighters, and emergency management services, for partnering with us to develop and execute a crisis plan in every building. We have strengthened safety and security in each of our schools with 400 security cameras, visitor identification systems, and 15 security personnel on staff. Further, we also work proactively to identify and address student behavior that may show signs of concern. Our counselors, social workers, psychologists, nurses, and our CARES coordinators are trained to recognize and support students in crisis. They also partner with mental health services to provide students and families with support and assistance. Along with our parents, we work as a team, as well as with our local officials, to keep students safe. It is our top priority. I want to also tonight note some things, important dates and things to remember. First of all, there is no school tomorrow for students, February 16th, and also on Monday, February 19th for the President's Day weekend. However, our teachers will be in session tomorrow and will participate in professional development that is led by their colleagues. This PD has been differentiated to meet teachers' needs. We have approximately 50 workshops tomorrow focused on topics such as technology integration, STEM, diversity, math, mindfulness, and helping students dealing with stress and anxiety. We look forward to this day tomorrow where our teachers will be able to learn with and from each other. Additionally, and you'll notice on our website, our Summer Academy registration is open and posted on our website for you. Our Summer Academy is for students entering grades K through 8. Programs include a STEM Academy, and academic programs focused on literacy and math. Finally, tonight, I want to note some additional examples in addition to the things that our Council Rock North Advisory Council pointed out, the service that they are doing, some additional examples of how our CR community is exemplifying our theme of kindness this year. Our Council Rock music faculty, along with some alumni, performed a wonderful recital to raise money for scholarships awarded to CR students who will study music. This year, they raised over $2,000 at the most recent CR faculty recital. As you may have seen on Fox 29 News, students at Newtown Middle School held a game night lock-in during which students with autism participated in different games along with Newtown Middle School students. The event was intended to raise money for Autism Cares. The middle school students, in addition to raising money, played many different games with the students throughout the night. This year, they raised about $3,000. This is the 6th year of this event. Over the last 6 years, they've raised close to $20,000 for Autism Cares. Definitely a sign of our theme of kindness. And finally, tonight we have Mr. Daniel Paschke here from the March of Dimes, and he is here to present Council Rock with a token of thanks for our district-wide efforts to support the March of Dimes. So I turn it over to Mr. Paschke at this time.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here and hear what all the students have been doing. And on top of that, I'm one of the beneficiaries of some of their hard work. Throughout the district, last year, you raised just for the March of Dimes right around $13,000. We really appreciate that. As far back as our digital records go, it's over $400,000. And I say digital because you as a district started somewhere in the 1980s. 86 is what the number that I heard, and is upwards of close to $750,000. And that's all the hard work, dedication that the students show every year, and we really appreciate it. So I'm here with a very small token of appreciation, a simple plaque. You, as the district, is the first place within the greater Philadelphia market. And I won't lie, normally you're the first place across the state. I just can't say that out loud, so don't tell anybody. Good thing you didn't. Thank you. I look forward to continued support. If anybody has any questions or comments, please let me know. And I do apologize. I have a newborn at home, so I'm about to run and relieve mom, so she needs a nap. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Paschke, and thank you to our Council Rock community for their continued support of the March of Dimes. Clearly has been very beneficial for many, many years. That ends my report, Mr. Grubb.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Summers, will you provide the Solicitors Report?
You have in front of you the Solicitors Report prepared by Mr. Cox, dated February 13th, 2018. I'd also like to announce at this time that on January 27th of 2018, the board attended a professional development conference led by the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. And also on February 8th, 2018, there was an executive session involving personnel and labor negotiation issues.
Very good. Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to open up for public comment. We normally read a long discourse, but it's a 3-minute opportunity for you to speak to the board. We may or may not respond, depending upon if we have the information immediately to hand. We do ask that you remember that there are people watching at home. This is coming into people's homes. Children may be watching. And we would later ask you as well to limit your time to 3 minutes. We won't be strict on that, but we will alert you when you're at 3 minutes and ask you to finish by 4. So with that, I'm going to call each person in turn. And as I call you, I will also call the person to be on deck behind you. That helps us walk through. We do have 19 people who are signed up for public comment this evening. So if you stay with the 3 minutes and help us with that being on deck, it'll help us move along. Our first speaker tonight is Mr. Statler, Rick Statler. And following Mr. Statler will be Janet Marks. I believe. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Statler.
Rick Stetler, Holland. The current teacher's contract expires June 30. I have 4 recommendations. I don't know if I'll get them all in for your next teacher's contract. Currently, according to the Census Bureau, in March of 2017, the average wage in Bucks County was $9.81. According to Courier Times, the average teacher salary in October of 2016 was $96,978. It's probably near $98,000 right now. In the private sector, people get a raise one way primarily only. That's through inflation. Not so in public. If you want to make more, you've got to get a different job or move and have more responsibility. Not so in public education. Public education, you get 3 things all at once. You get inflation, you get time and grade, vertical steps, okay, 1 through 13. You're doing the same job, but you get increases, and you get 30 to 40% from educational credits. Suggestion number 1 for inflation, okay? In 2009 to 2012, teachers got an average of got 6.25% inflation. During the same period, Bucks County citizens lost 1.2%. Why did that happen? Was the board not clairvoyant? None of us are clairvoyant. We don't know. Base your inflation adjustments on an index. Bureau of Labor Statistics, CPI, Act 1, combination of all three. If they go up 2%, teachers' inflation goes up 2%. If they go down, teachers also go down. Point number 2, supply and demand. A physics teacher and an English teacher in the same box on the salary scale make the same. English is easy, physics is hard. English teachers, everyone who starts out, virtually everyone makes it. 50% of physics teachers drop out. English teachers, hard pressed to make in private sector 50% or 60% of what they make in public education. Physics teachers, they could make as much. Result, a glut of English teachers, a dearth, a paucity, okay, of physics teachers. There's no supply and demand. Suggestion, and University of Nevada and University of Wisconsin have studies on this. There's easy majors and there's hard majors, and you know what they are. The easy majors, English, music, art, elementary education. The hard majors, STEM. Take your existing salary matrix and put a coefficient in front of it. Multiply it by a coefficient that reflects supply and demand. For instance, for English majors, it might be 80%. For secondary or for elementary education, it might be 85%. For physics majors, it might be 120%. Get some relevant market data into your system. Suggestion 3, advanced degrees. Okay, everything on a snow holiday, I read for 4 hours the effect of advanced degrees. Almost every study, with the exception of advanced degrees in math, say there is no effect, okay, as far as student achievement or as far as teacher effectiveness from advanced degrees. Yet we pay 30 to 40% for those advanced degrees. Solution. If a teacher wants to get a master's degree, administration approves it, $35,000 of tuition reimbursement, $25,000 bonus. Contrast that with our current system. Teacher graduates at 22, gets a job. In 5 years, they have a master's degree. In 10 years, they've got another 30 credits. By the time they're 62, they retire. What is the cost for those advanced degrees to the district? The cost is somewhere between $700,000 and $1 million. Then beyond that, there's the pension. That's $350 to $500. What do I got? A minute left?
No, you went for 4 minutes.
So I'll either return for the last point, but that has to be reformed. It's outrageous, that cost. Thank you.
I believe Janet did not intend to sign up this evening. Next speaker will be Bill Kronberger, and then I believe Lexi's the last she that signed up. After Mr. Kronberger will be Janet Cole. Mr. Kronberger.
I didn't really have any comments. I just wanted to be present to hear what was going on the plans for the redistricting, and wanted to put my name down in case I wanted to speak afterwards. Looking forward to what's going to be presented.
Very good.
Thank you.
As a moment of commentary around that, the board will not be voting on a redistricting plan tonight. We will be talking a little bit about what has come from the redistricting plan that we saw. We'll have some discussion about that, and I believe there may be some discussion about current 6th graders and what to do with them if we're not ready to make the redistricting plan in the immediate for next year. So we're not voting on anything other than that possibility this evening. All right. Janet Cole. Following Janet will be Denise Mikowski. Mrs. Cole.
Hi. First of all, I'm actually an elementary teacher as well, so speaking in front of adults is definitely not my comfort zone, but I do care about kids, and I care about both North and South in Council Rock, and I thank you for the hard work that you all put into this. Well, I'm here to just real quick talk about redistricting, but also recess, because even though redistricting is important to me, as a district and educator, I think recess is something that K-3 children need twice a day. In my own neighboring district, and I know this was a topic that was going to come up soon for the school board, This year, I've had a lot less behavior problems and much more focused children for giving them 2 recesses a day. In the past, I didn't give them 2 recesses a day, and a lot more focus issues came about. Student productivity was not nearly as strong. So just food for thought when you do talk about redistricting, ask elementary teachers. And to the gentleman who thinks a physics teacher is perhaps not as important as, say, an English teacher, invite a physics teacher into an elementary classroom. They will be scared to death and not be able to perform. So I apologize for that. With regards to redistricting, it is never easy. It does need to happen. Completely agree with it. I was pleasantly surprised at the redistricting committee's original proposal. I thought it was really well thought out. I liked how they were confident in presenting their ideas. I know some people are not happy about that original proposal, but I also like that not the traditional neighborhoods were moved in that redistricting proposal. In the past, certain neighborhoods have been moved over the last several redistricting moves. So hopefully the wealth will be shared in whatever proposal you come up with. I do agree that you need to look at transportation. You don't want to have kids on the bus for a significantly longer amount of time if they're passing several schools. So something I want you to think about as a redistricting committee. Please focus on class size and trying to keep the percentage of children moving to a small number, because if you move large quantities of kids, there are things that can happen that you might not be aware of. If you move a large percentage of children, teachers are not going to be able to communicate social and emotional needs. It's easy to communicate IEP needs, but it's not easy to communicate. I'm talking if it's like a learning disability, not a severe need. If a child is redistricted and it's only a handful of kids that are being moved, it's easy for a teacher at Holland Elementary to communicate with a teacher at Hillcrest and say, hey, this child needs this, or this child learns better with this type of teacher. But if you move large quantities of kids, the typically developing average kid gets lost in the shuffle because you're just moving numbers and they become paper. So there is a pro to moving small quantities of kids. Also, when you make redistricting moves, please don't just pluck one neighborhood out for another neighborhood and try to keep it small. So thank you for all you do. I was really impressed with our high school students. They were phenomenal.
Thank you, Mrs. Cole. Mr. Wachowski, I believe you're joined with additional Wachowskis have signed up with you.
Good evening, Dennis Wachowski from Village Shires. I wanted to address, I attended the facilities meeting on February 1st, and pretty much what I took out of that meeting is kind of that we're putting the cart before the horse, is kind of what's transpiring. We're making all these plans for renovations, additions, and whatnot to Rolling Hills, to Wrightstown Elementary. In my eyes, we really need to figure out where we're sending the kids first. You know, iron out the redistricting, who's going north. Obviously, the south schools need, in the elementary level, need to be balanced out a little bit more than they are because you have the overcrowding at Hillcrest. You know, instead of spending taxpayers' money to plan all these renovations, how about we think more long-term? You know, instead of spending $5–10 million on renovation this year, and 2–3 years down the road, now we're spending $10 million on an addition to that same school. You know, why not group them together? You know, save money for the taxpayers, for the citizens, that not only the parents, but the citizens of the district, where you're grouping together the additions and the renovations at the same time. Obviously, you're going to save money having the contractors on site already instead of bringing it back out 2–3 years down the road. With that, I ask that we look at a different demographer in the numbers that are projected. I mean, last year we were closing Rolling Hills, we were closing Wrightstown. Now there are 2 schools that we're spending millions and millions of dollars on to be renovated, but we were just closing them last year. So the numbers aren't really jiving with what's been consistent with what's going on since last year. Are the numbers correct? You know, in my opinion, we need to hire another demographer to come in, reevaluate the numbers, get a second opinion. You know, for the cost of the $20–30,000 that it costs to have the demographer come in, to me, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, that's money well spent. You know, before we go ahead and release, you know, millions and millions of dollars to renovations that don't need to be done. You know, I think we need to slow down, evaluate more of a long-term instead of a short-term goal of, yes, the schools look very pretty, that's great, but let's make it more useful for the students that are in that area. Let's keep students in their township. Let's keep students in their community. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Witkowski. Next is Weston Witkowski, who I think is going to be supported by Susie Witkowski. Weston, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Weston Witkowski from Village Shires. I am currently a 4th grader at Hillcrest Elementary. I wanted to give the board the thoughts of the redistricting from the eyes of one of the students that is affected. I am asking the board to reconsider sending such a small group of kids from Hillcrest to Newtown. There are so many reasons I asked this not to take place. I was hoping to be a safety as I become a 6th grader. If I have to move to Newtown Elementary, I will not have the same opportunity to do so. We apply as 5th graders to fill that role as when we're in 6th grade, but I won't be there. I have also been looking forward to becoming involved in student council as a 6th grader at Hillcrest. If I have to move to Newtown, I will have to give up on these goals I have set for myself because I would no longer be at Hillcrest. If only 16 students from my grade at Hillcrest are moving to Newtown Elementary, I will be leaving pretty much all of my friends. It is hard enough to make the change from elementary to middle school. If we are moved from Hillcrest to Newtown, it will be like we're starting a new school 2 years in a row. Please only move more kids just as a larger group to make these transitions easier for us students. At Hillcrest, at the end of the 6th grade year, all of the classes come together to celebrate the friendships we have made over the past 7 years. We have our class parties together. I will not be able to celebrate with the friends and fellow classmates of 7 years. Instead, I will be moved to a school where I feel like an outcast as they have the same celebrations. If I must be moved to a school I've loved from the school I've loved for 5 years, there are 2 other elementary schools in Holland that would be much easier to switch for my 6th grade year. Attending a different school in Holland would be tough, but it would make it a lot easier to know I will be back with everyone in middle school. Please keep Holland kids in Holland schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Weston. Next, we'll hear from Susie Witkowski, who will be followed by Robert Donald.
He read that probably better than I'll be reading this. Hi, I'm Susie Witkowski. I live in Village Shires. I first want to thank all of the members of the school board and also the redistricting committee for the countless hours they've dedicated of their own time away from their families. I appreciate all of you for volunteering. I try to volunteer as much as I can at my kids' school, which is Hillcrest Elementary. I am on several committees and I'm also a homeroom parent, all while working full-time with 4 kids, so I get it. I know it's definitely not the same as an elected member of the school board, but I do it for the kids and the community, as I'm sure all of you do as well. My husband Dennis and I are both Council Rock alumni. We have moved out of state twice now and keep coming back to Bucks County and back to Council Rock. I went to Holland Middle. At the time, way back when, it was Holland Junior High. When we bought our house back in 2004, attending Hillcrest Elementary, Holland Middle, and Council Rock South were factors in our decision to purchase our home. I've been telling my kids as long as I can remember that they'll be going to Holland Middle and walk the same halls I did many years ago, although it looks a little different now. Moving Village Shires to Newtown Elementary was never even on our radar. We knew there was a chance we'd have to switch elementary schools when the talk began about redistricting, but never did we even fathom our little neighborhood would be ripped out of our elementary school and our path to south and sent to Newtown Elementary and on to Newtown Middle and North. We need more time for this process. We definitely need a second opinion on the demography. After all of the research, it's quite apparent that Sundance has made some very serious mistakes. Mistakes that outrage 2 whole schools in our Council Rock community. My heart broke for those parents and children who were told their school would be closing, and then come to find out the information was wrong. All of that stress for nothing. Talk about stress. Our little Village Shires neighborhood has been going to school board meetings, meetings with school board members, and meetings within our neighborhood amongst ourselves. We are trying so hard to have a voice. but it can't even compare to the 1,000 or so parents from Rolling Hills and Wrightstown who were fighting to keep their schools open. Which brings me to my next point, this tiny little number of kids being moved across the district. I understand where the redistricting committee was, where they were coming from, and thought it was a good thing to only affect just over 9%. And I have to strongly disagree with the woman who spoke a little bit ago. With so few kids moving, it makes it all the more painful for the ones that do have to go. And just to paint the picture for everyone, there are 19 sixth graders proposed to go from Hillcrest to Newtown, 13 fifth graders proposed from Hillcrest to Newtown, 16 fourth graders proposed to go from Hillcrest to Newtown, 15 third graders proposed to move from Hillcrest to Newtown, 20 second graders proposed to move from Hillcrest to Newtown, 12 first graders proposed to move from Hillcrest to Newtown, and 16 little kindergartners proposed to move to Newtown. Like I said, I truly believe we need more time to figure out a resolution for this redistricting issue. Please consider these very small groups being sent all the way to the other side of the district. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be hearing from Robert Donnelly of Richboro, who will be followed by Maureen Hickey of Richboro. Mr. Donnelly.
Good evening. My name is Robert Donnelly, as mentioned 2 or 3 times now, from Richboro, Pennsylvania. And I guess for 8 years I sat on the other side of that table as a school board director. But the recent redistricting has given me pause to reflect on the direction and the recommendations as you move forward. Declaration of Independence. Key word there. All men are created equal. That's the key. What's the key word there? Equal. You look and you see the current redistricting model, and it suggests that at the core, it's a misguided attempt, in my view, to create equal situations. Think about this. We have 10 elementary schools. Which one of them is equal to the other? In terms of physical plant, population, number of teachers? No. Is any one of those schools better than the other? No. Every one of those schools is equitable, not equal. The school district plan should be going to see how do we maintain an equitable situation. You're currently in the process of building Newtown Middle School. And you said, okay, let us remodel Holland Middle School to have 2 terrific middle schools. But let's make them equal. No, let's make them equitable. Do not ignore the sending pattern. 55% of the current sending pattern should go to Holland because that's where the kids live. 45% will go to Newtown, and the education will be equitable for all. When you send your children, who you all love equally, to school with lunch in their bag, does the first grader get the same equal lunch as the senior? No, they get an equitable lunch. It fits their situation. I'm begging the board to reconsider the vision. It seems as if we had this great motto. We're going to treat everyone equal, and in the end, what do we get? Anger, frustration, and in many ways, not quite fitting what you wanted it to do. In the end, if you move forward with the current redistricting, as opposed to working with the current sending patterns, which is what I'm recommending here, and make the bricks deliver, that is the buildings deliver what's needed, not the other way around and move children around and disrupt them that way. You will then start separating neighborhoods. You can then live by a terrific motto. Yes, we are separated, but equal. I don't think that's a good phrase. I think back to my fact that it's February, Black History Month. Was separate but equal a good one? No. But to be separated but equal is not what this school district wants to do. I suggest we incorporate the motto, let's be neighborly and equitable. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maureen Hickey from Ridgeboro, who will be followed by Nancy Basta from Holland. Mrs. Hickey.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me your time tonight. I was actually asked to step in for a dear friend of mine who wrote a letter to the Courier-Times in response to an article they had written that many people felt chastised the parents that were going to be facing redistricting. And she responded with her own editorial, but it has not, I think she told me anyway, it has not made it in the paper, and she's asked me to read it here tonight. So I'm going to do that right now. She entitles it, "I Am Leading by Example." My name is Nancy Patterson. She can't be here tonight, obviously. My name is Nancy Patterson, and I am mom to 5, blessed at times to have gone through or to be going through Council Rock schools. Blessed at times because 2 of my 5 were smack dab in the middle of the redistricting plan that began in 2002, which resembles the current proposal. Those days indeed brought anger and angst, not blessings. Your editorial chastises parents and questions the idea of pain inflicted on the small amount of students that will be moved. The proposal states that 515 children will be moved. However, only 220 will be asked to leave their township. I'm curious to know why you think that will not cause pain. I know there will be pain because as a family, we have witnessed and endured it. In 2002, only the Richboro community was separated from its peers, sending 20% of students along their way north to blend in as if all things were equal. I remember thinking that the separation of friends at such a critical time in their lives was one thing, but I believed the bigger issue to be that they were overmatched by the intact school community they were now joining. I was not wrong. In 2005, 3 years into that split, of which we parents did as we were told, a grassroots movement of parents, after connecting the dots through the telling of real stories, finally began to shine light on the struggles of these Richboro students. Yes, some had gone on to make lemonade, but there were plenty left behind with real issues. Administration denied all requests for transfers back to where these students felt they belonged after failing, and just as bad was the blind eye so many turned on these children and their families. If you were not affected, you stayed quiet. When I say that real trouble surfaced, I hope you believe me so I don't have to communicate the ugly, scary truths endured by many. While the rest of the students at Council Rock, oblivious to this split, went about their day, many Richboro students were brought to their knees. As much as I know better than to wish any child to move from their backyards, I have to say that the inclusion of Village Shires in this present proposal forces them, and hopefully every parent now, to think about a pain that was once only ours. There were many Richboro families feeling alone in their plight. Please don't suggest that these students and parents were not strong, because nothing could be further from the truth. The isolation that accompanied this redistricting showed no mercy, but finally, after a 7-year battle in 2012, Richboro was made whole again. When that ended, guess what? It also ended the pain. Thank God we had parents willing to fight for this small group of kids. The Richboro students of these past 6 years, blessed to have had a level playing field, have no idea how lucky they are that the battle was already fought on their behalf. But now I ask, if the children proposed to be moved make up 12% of their new school, do you really think the answer lies in the parents and how they present the change to their children? Do you really think that pain will not be involved? This time I have no child affected, but like so many did, I will not turn away. May your Sunday editorial, which prompted my response, remind you that this mom is leading by example in teaching my children to stand for justice.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickey.
I just want to say one thing real quick, if I have a second, do I?
24 minutes.
I did? Okay, thank you for that extra minute.
The next speaker is Nancy Basta, who will be followed by Heather McClay. Mrs. Basta.
Hi, my name is Nancy Basta. I live in the Holland community, and I have a 4th grader at Holland Elementary. And I know redistricting brings out a lot of passion in our community. And I have to say, I haven't really followed it very closely until, a lot of the voices got very loud. And my first reaction was, I don't want my son to move from his elementary school. I want him to be with the same, kids that he's always been with. I want him to go to the school that I thought he was going to go to. I had all of those emotional reactions. And then I stepped back and said, what is it that I really care about? And what I really care about is the education my son gets. And I also care about the social aspects of it and how folks, what it means to a kid to change schools. So I get the bigger picture there. So I reflected, what are the two things that I would want you guys as a board and our community to really focus on? And for me, it's class size, because I feel like that's an important criteria on the quality of education, and minimizing the disruption. And if that means whatever plan you come up with, to me, I'm going to measure it in by those two criteria. And if you tell me my son needs to move from Holland Elementary to Newtown Middle because he's going to get a better education because of the class size, I may not like that. It may be change, but I'm pretty confident our kids are resilient and they can handle that kind of change. But we need to know the facts behind that, and we need to know what your North Star is and what you're measuring these plans by, and you need to be consistent in how you measure them, and you need to consistently communicate that to the community. And no matter what plan you put out there, there will be an emotional reaction, and there will be people who are unhappy. So, be clear on your criteria and make sure it's a North Star that we can all understand and commit to it and communicate on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Buck. The next speaker is Heather McClay from Holland, who will be followed by Craig Mesmer, also of Holland. Ms. McClay.
Hi, I'm Heather McClay, and I live in Village Shires in Holland. I have four children who, in the 2019-2020 school year, all will be in elementary school at Hillcrest from kindergarten to 5th grade. I would like to just talk about the representation on the redistricting committee. There have been conflicting stories circling the rumor mill about how and why the current committee was chosen. One report is that it was completely randomly selected from the volunteer application emails they received. Another, though, is that the committee parents were specifically selected because their kids were not in the proposed redistricting areas. The idea being that having parents of children who were being moved would bring too much emotion into the room. I'm not sure what the selection process was. Nobody's been very clear on exactly how that has happened. We've been told some things about, it was probably principal helped out picking, or how these meetings were even formatted, which further amplifies the need for more transparency in this process. The fact is, as soon as the current proposed map was selected as the map, the parents of the students being moved should have had representation on that committee. There is none for Village Shires. There needed to be someone in the room to speak for those students and families that will be most affected by this process. I am sure the committee as a whole, and especially the parent volunteers, did the best they could with the data they were given and had the best intentions. It is a fact, however, that out of the 30 parental volunteers on the committee, zero of their children have been affected by the current proposed plan. We cannot write this off as a coincidence. I will readily admit that having conflicting ideas would definitely make the process more challenging for the committee, but it would also ensure a more thorough and fair process in the end. This is just one of the many points that we as a community are trying to communicate tonight. And thank you again for your opportunity to speak.
We'll be hearing from Mr. Mesmer from Holland, who will be followed by Brenda Bradbury.
Good evening. Craig Mesmer, Holland, Village Shires. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board again. While there has been a lot of concern voiced over the redistricting process, many of us hold no fault or ill will toward the board, the administration, or the committee. We recognize that the process is complex and that there are no easy solutions. Simply, many of us are having a hard time trusting the numbers put forth by Sundance and worry that decisions are being made on data that may or may not be accurate. These feelings and opinions are based on what we've read and what we've learned. It's not just complaining or making up excuses for personal gain. Please consider these facts and quotes from an article on the October 24th edition of BucksLocalNews.com, which followed the October board meeting. As per the reporter and the minutes from the meeting, there was discussion at the board level for nearly an hour about bringing in a new demographer. While that would delay redistricting, it was noted that it would result in better projections. If that's the case, then that to me is a short-term loss for a long-term gain. There was a board suggestion to have a second party quality check Sundance's data. That's a great idea. Was it done? If so, who did it? What were the results? If it was not done, why not? Please consider this opinion taken directly from the article. Quote, a lot of times if someone makes a mistake, they work harder in the future. I have a feeling that Sundance will be so cautious and so careful with the next study that it will be better than we can get from anyone else because they don't want to be wrong again. End quote. That does not instill confidence. It implies, in fact, that Sundance maybe didn't work hard enough the first time or would be overly concerned with protecting their reputation. We don't need a demographer to be cautious. We need a demographer to be thorough and honest and accurate. Finally, please consider this sentiment from another board member. Quote, it may be that Sundance is the best demographer for the job, but if the public doesn't believe the numbers, and if we don't have the support of the public, redistricting will be horrendous. If the public doesn't trust the numbers, I don't think we have a choice but to hire another demographer. We need to step back and reassess. End quote. That was from 3 months ago. Those words are prophetic. That's exactly what's happening now. So we thank Mr. Bialik for his wise words from 3 months ago, and we respectfully urge the board to strongly consider those words. We believe that another demographer should be utilized to ensure accuracy. We believe the words and the vision of Mr. Bialik and build trust, inspire confidence, and provide a logical and fair plan moving forward. Again, as we've said, we can't afford to hurry up and get it wrong. We need to slow down and get it right. Thank you for your time and consideration.
We'll be hearing from Brenda Bradbury next, and after that, we'll hear from Mr. Hickey in Richboro. Ms. Bradbury, can you also give us your name? Your name we know, but town. It's not Eastern.
It is. I used to live in Richboro. I'm here. I'm tired. I really don't want to be here, but I feel the need to be here. I have 3 children that went to Keltera. I'm sorry. It's just emotional because that 2002 split is still heavy in my heart. What we did, the devastation that did to my middle child, my first child went to Council Rock. He would have slid back in to Council Rock. He didn't never want to leave. My second child, you split him and put him into a school where he knew no one. And it is the education, but here is the education. My child didn't want to go to school. So where is the education? My older son and my younger daughter wanted to go every day. And here's the thing. They're blue and white night. They go to, these friends lived with, since they were 4 years old, they played football with each other. They're buds. Like, how do you take that away from them? They can't go to blue and white night. They can't go to prom together. They can't do any of that because they're in 2 different schools. It's just not fair. It was so devastating. And I don't know the lady's name, but that North Star, she doesn't realize how devastating it is to watch your son, your middle one, not get what your older and your younger daughter got. He got nothing except for heartache because he could not do anything with those kids that he grew up with. How fair is that? That's just so wrong. And then after school, South was doing stuff and the kids weren't even in the neighborhood. They need that camaraderie. He did lunch by himself. It's the football team. It was just very devastating. It really made my son not want to go to school, and that's part of education. I was blessed that my older son and younger daughter wanted to go, but he did not because he had, let me take your friends away from you, okay, that you've had forever and give you all new friends. Well, how would that make you feel? I just don't get it. It's nothing about going to South or going to North. My allegiance was to North. I loved my son going to North. But my allegiance is to, and I'm begging you. You said it, an impressive stand. I'm hoping you take an impressive stand and keep these kids together for that reason. And that will give them a better education. Thank you for your time.
After we hear from Mr. Hickey from Richboro, we'll be hearing from Robin DeYoung from Holland. Mr. Hickey.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the board and the Redistricting Committee for all the work that they have put in and the many meetings that they've held and I'm going to say abuse that they've probably put up with in regards to this. It is a very touchy subject. I've stood up here before and I've said to the board, I've requested the board, hey, there's got to be a way for you guys to find all these Northampton kids to be able to fit in the Holland Middle School. Somebody said, you could probably use the money that you were going to spend on Wrightstown. Like, that all back? I actually looked at the enrollment from this month from the website. And if you add all the numbers from all the Northampton students that would go to Holland, it might be a little tight this year. It's at 936. However, the school accommodates, I believe the number is 960. But then if you take it further, next year, that number goes from 936 down to 900. The year after, from 908 to 887. And the year after that, which is that 21-22 year that everybody talks about, it actually goes down to 871 students, almost 100 students less than the school can currently accommodate without spending a dime on any reconstruction costs. So I was incorrect. Like I said, you don't need to find room. You don't need to expand the building. The room's already there to accommodate. In the meantime, the enrollment at Newtown Middle will be at 761 next year, 772 the year after, 779 the year after, and 751 in that year 21-22. A little short, but still fairly consistent where the number in the South is actually going down. I think the problem is, as I said before, Newtown was built at the exact wrong size. Too small to accommodate a full elementary school from the South, but too big for its current population. And I currently feel that it's unfair that the Northampton students are going to have to pay for that mistake, especially when they do fit at Newtown Middle with no construction costs. On the flip side, if there is any growth in the area, there's a chance that the people that you are projecting now to go to Wrightstown, Newtown, and South, basically the kids from College Park in that Richboro area, they're going to have to flip back now to the South. So it's, like I said, it's kind of like, oh, we need the people to go north. It'll be the Northampton kids from Richboro. We need them to go south. We'll flip them back. Which, you know, like I said, so now they're going to be back where they came from. So they're going to just keep on getting flipped around, which is very unfair. And if there is growth, I know one of the redistricting, the committee, they did not rely on any new developments, supposedly at Spring Mill. If there is, I think it would be fair to have those schools feed to Wrightstown, Newtown, and North. They would buy their home knowing that that is the feeder pattern, and there would be plenty of room at the school to accommodate them. At the very least, I think we should wait until September, when those real numbers come out for where the population is actually going in the district. The difference between last year to this year is very minimal. There was no real growth. I believe it was 20 elementary students over 10 schools. That's 2 per school. And we would rely on real numbers, not on the numbers of a demographer who most of the members of the board have no faith in. So I would respectfully ask you at this time to consider the current feeder patterns that are currently used and to stick with them for at least the next few years.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. We'll be hearing from Robin DeYoung next, and then she'll be followed by Brian DeYoung.
All right.
Yeah.
Have to excuse the crew, not my children help me with it.
Ask your husband to hold.
Yeah.
It was my fault. That's going to count towards your time. No, it's not.
My name is Robin DeYoung, and I live in Village Shires in Holland. I have spoken to the board previously addressing my concerns over the current and only proposed map on the table right now. My chief concern is that you are sending our children to a different township to attend school. I am here tonight to reiterate these concerns, especially the effect they will have on the younger children at the elementary school level. These children in particular will be adversely affected since all of their after-school activities take place in the community. There are very few, if any, school-sanctioned activities for children at the 4th grade level and below. These children and parents rely on community-based activities in order to form friendships and socialize with classmates outside of school. Our young children attend Northampton Library events where the kids run into their classmates. We play sports in Northampton where their friends and classmates are also their teammates. We attend Northampton festivals and holiday celebrations where our children socialize with members of their community who also happen to be classmates. We also attend church in Northampton where our children worship and attend CCB with their school friends. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are Northampton-based, and the troops are made up of kids from school. If you take this small group of kids out of their township, their community, to send them to school in Newtown, all of the faces they see at these community events will become strangers. They will not be the same kids that they bond with in the school year. Our handful of kids will become outsiders in their own community because they don't go to school here. Just because young children are resilient doesn't mean we should disregard their place in the community. One of the 6 board guidelines that were established at the beginning of this whole process back in December 2015 was, students will attend a school that is relatively close to their address. Village Shires is located in Holland. There are 3 elementary schools in Holland. 2 of these schools are so close to us that if you add the distance up from Village Shires to those schools, it still does not equal the distance from Village Shires to Newtown Elementary. I can appreciate how difficult a job it was on the committee to come up with an answer. No matter how redistricting is accomplished, you will never be able to make everyone happy. The Village Shires community understands this to a certain degree, which is why we are not demanding to stay in an overcrowded school such as Hillcrest. What we do request, however, is that you do not send our children all the way across the district to another township to go to school when there are 3 Holland schools right here in Northampton Township where they will be able to succeed both at school and in their own community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Mr. DeYoung, are you speaking? I'm sure if you were just an easel tonight.
Usually my job. Okay, Brian DeYoung from Village Shires. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I would especially like to thank the members of the school board that have sacrificed time out of their personal lives over the last few weeks to meet with various members of our community. I realize that all of you have professional lives outside these walls, and personal time is very precious. That time you could be spending with your families and loved ones. While I personally have only been able to attend one of these gatherings during such time, my wife and neighbors have participated in several, and I know they share in my gratitude of your willingness to discuss the issues here. Over the last few weeks, I have had multiple discussions with an eclectic group of community members, neighbors, parents of children both affected and not affected by the redistricting plan, and also residents that no longer have children in the Council Rock school system. During the course of my interactions with these community members, I have realized a consistent sentiment, and that is frustration. I have no doubt in my mind that the members of the school board not only sense the frustration of this community, but at times have been the unfortunate recipients of the manifestations of those frustrations. In my own experience in my professional life, I feel that I have a sense of what you might be experiencing, so I can truly sympathize what you're going through. I say that because I would ask the members of this school board to keep an open mind regarding my following commentary. Regarding the redistricting committee itself, it is my understanding that the minutes from the redistricting committee meetings are not published. It is also my understanding from personal interactions that I have experienced both by me and my neighbors, parents who are serving on the redistricting committee are extremely reluctant to discuss the details of the committee meetings with other members of the community. My neighborhood does not have any representation on the redistricting committee. My wife and neighbors have had several discussions with parents who reside in other areas of Northampton who have children that are being redistricted, but also do not have any representation on the redistricting committee.
These communities are frustrated because they basically have a sense that we're being left outside with no window into the logic being utilized to shape the redistricting maps. This is causing a lack of transparency. This frustration over the lack of transparency is not only being felt by families being redistricted, but by the families who are actually serving on the redistricting committee. There are families that are serving on the committee that have made statements that they are upset. Their families feel the committee is being labeled as the sole entity behind the redistricting map. Also, they have stated that the board is essentially taking a step back and making the committee take all the blame for the map itself. Again, this is not conjecture or my opinion. These are statements that have been echoed to myself and or other members of various communities. I'm not aware of any non-disclosure agreements with which the committee members have to adhere. So I can't speak to as to why they're not passing this information along further. People outside the committee that are being affected by this redistricting have a sense that their interests are not being considered. I realize it is not realistic to have 8,000 people on a redistricting committee. I'm asking for more communication flow and more information flow. Can the committee meetings be made public? If that's not realistic, can the minutes be published? Can they be televised? If none of these options are available, please help me and the community understand why that is. I, along with other community members, am disappointed with the lack of transparency in the redistricting process. I do not make these statements as a personal attack towards you, the members of this board, okay? I'm offering it up as constructive criticism of the process that is currently in place. I know this board has made comments in the past that won't affect as few families and children as possible as a resulting of the redistricting. But here we are tonight, and I look around the room, and I see many members of this community that are frustrated. 10 more seconds, sir. There are many members of in this community around this room that are frustrated. I think if the committee meetings were not closed doors and made public, it would go a long way in educating myself and other members of the community as to why this map is the best and only option. I thank you very much for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Dior. The last speaker who has signed up this evening is Michelle Christian. I said your name.
Well, I know that. I think you said someone else's name too. Thank you for having us all here and allowing us to talk, even though it wasn't the beginning of the agenda. But here we are again, and I am disappointed that after all the discussion that occurred at the last board meeting and after discussion with many of you on this board, that a new demographer hasn't been contacted, retained, brought here to talk to us, brought here to talk to you. It looks like that's gone, that's sailed away. And I don't quite understand that because I keep looking back at the minutes and news articles, and the demographer has no confidence by the board nor by the community, yet you're allowing them to do everything when it comes to this redistricting plan. Sundance costs the district time, it costs them money. They meet with the redistricting committee and they provide information to them. Only Sundance gives the committee information that then they make these maps. After Sundance gave them 16 conceptual plans to then fill in students. Where did they get those plans from? They got them from Sundance. We don't trust Sundance, but that's okay. We're going to keep using Sundance. The redistricting committee is not permitted to bring outside knowledge in. They're only allowed to bring in knowledge by Sundance. So we have the committee. The board has nothing to do with it, which I've heard from the board over and over and over. I don't know anything. I'm not a part of it. Okay, you're not a part of it. But you allow the administration to be a part of it. You allow them to continue to retain Sundance. And Sundance, the demographer that we have no confidence in, keeps giving information, if they even show up, to the redistricting committee. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand where they're getting their information from. Nobody here knows. There's no transparency as to where they're getting any information from. I personally went and checked with Northampton Township to see what Sundance did with them, and it's an absolute joke. There was nothing put in writing. There was no request, please fill this out, please let us know what's going on with these numbers. That didn't happen. A phone call. Hey, do you know what's going on in Northampton? Oh, sure, let's talk about it. That's how your demographer found out the numbers. For our kids, the find out where they're going to go to school. A joke. It's ridiculous. I really wish that we would be here today and you would tell us that you're getting a new demographer. Maybe that will come up in redistricting. I don't know. We need it. We need transparency. We need real numbers that we can trust. I also want to know what is going on with this board. Where is your due diligence? Where's the administration in making sure that we don't make more mistakes? There's no fiscal responsibility going on here. Let's see, $54 million on Holland Middle School. Has anyone been in Holland Middle School? My goodness. Teach my kids to read and write. They don't need these grand windows. They don't need architecture. Teach them how to read and write. Just put them in there, send them home. I'll take care of the rest. We spent all this money, millions to renovate Wrightstown. Why? Why did we do all this? Why did the board approve and spend over $15 million to renovate Holland? We're renovating Newtown. We're building up Wrightstown. Nobody counted the kids. Nobody figured out, oh, we need this, we need that. No, let's build. Let's spend money. Let's do that first, and then we'll worry about the kids. You needed to worry about the kids first. I ask this board to please stop making so many mistakes. Thank you.
That is the end of the persons who have signed up for public comment. Okay. Very good. We'll take a little more. I really do need to ask those persons who speak at public comment, if you know you're going to be here and speak at public comment, I saw you both walk in late, please sign up, because I've received complaints about persons who stage until after the public who has signed in speak so that they get closing comments. So going forward, I saw you both walk in.
I'm just coming from work. So.
I got you. But we have had it happen many times that the last speaker is someone who's been here since the beginning and chooses to stage to be the last speaker. Can I have your name and the address?
My name's Megan DeFinis from Richborough, College Park. So I'm a parent of a second grade daughter and a pre-K son, and I'm really struggling trying to understand why the reason this is all happening. Are we trying to balance the population where the middle school is built the wrong size? Why are we putting our trust in a demographer that has made mistakes? One of the reasons you started redistricting was because Rolling Hills was closed and we needed to move students. Then after redistricting meetings began in October, Sundance came in with new figures and Rolling Hills was to stay open. This company has lost credibility. Why are we continuing down this path when many think we need to reevaluate with another demographer? Let's get this right. It's hard to accept what you're asking of us because we don't feel it's being handled in the right way and don't trust Sundance. A parent in the Westchester School District had said that 3,000 new homes were not accurately accounted for when Sundance was used in their redistricting just a few years ago. Now redistricting has to happen again, and they might have to build a new school. This might be something for you to look into and consider. For our district, why was Spring Mill project not considered? How about Bucks County Rose's property or several other housing projects that are being projected district-wide? We don't know these answers yet and can not short-sightedly accept Sundance's current projections. We also don't know why the middle schools were built the exact size. We have around 55% in the south and about 45% in the north. So why were these schools constructed in this manner? And why hasn't an adjustment to Holland been considered while construction is still ongoing? Certainly, this seems like a less disruptive option than redistricting every several years. Richborough was north for years, then south, and now proposed to be north again. When is enough for the Richborough community? My son will be starting kindergarten next year and then move to Wrightstown, or propose to be moved to Wrightstown for his first grade year, and my daughter will be in 4th grade at that time. So will our family be once again asked to bear the burden of the district? There are families in the affected neighborhoods who have already lived through this years ago with their older kids and are now in the same situation. I urge you to come up with a reasonable solution. I hope you sit back and really reflect on what happened years ago when Richborough families were sent to schools outside the community they grew up in. It's just not right. Why not survey Northampton and see who would be willing to change schools? Because there are people that are willing. North is ranked better academically, and I feel like if you allow choice, that would really help with this situation. Please don't force this change onto those who wish to stay in their community. If this is not an option you're willing to hear, then I suggest please just stay with status quo until a new demographer is chosen and a study is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Carroll, I see you're on deck.
Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough. Sorry I wasn't here in time to sign up. People think I like to come up here to talk, but I also like to come to these meetings to listen and offer solutions and to question. And one of my first questions is, when did we publicly abandon the concept that children from the ages of K to 6 would go to a community school, to their closest school? When was that discussion? When was that vote? Rather than keeping all the K to 6 together, which is what we had decided years ago, and then moving them together to the next level, whether it be to one of the middle schools and then one of the high schools. Because that was the concept when you were deciding on building Holland and Newtown equal. And you know that I came to many, many meetings and said they shouldn't be equal. But if you're gonna put the kids in them to make them equal, then I will take away my objection. When is the public gonna see the data, the new data that supports keeping Rolling Hills and Wrightstown open? So the public has no trust in Sundance because we haven't seen the data. Where is the growth going to be? We don't know because nobody's seen any data from the demographer. I am going to offer a suggestion, and the suggestion is that we do not build the 5 classrooms onto Wrightstown. There is enough room in Salt Finestone and other places in the north to take care of their students. I have a couple slips here that currently there's only 250 some students who live in Wrightstown who are at the elementary level. And I'd like to, I only have like 6 copies, but I'd like the board secretary to have one so she can put it in the minutes. And I'd like you to have one because you were head of capital planning. And Barry and Susan, because you're in charge of redistricting. And these numbers come from Dr. Frazier. So there's not enough students in Wrightstown to have a full K to 6 school. So not even now, not even if you kept it the way it is, there are students that are going there from Northampton and from Newtown. And when we, the taxpayers, pay the money to add 5 more schools, we're also saying you have to take kids from Northampton to fill it. That's the problem. Thank you.
I'll keep this short. Thank you.
Name and the town you're from.
Eric Stevens, Wrightstown. First of all, thank you very much for your service and for hearing me. What it boils down to that this process has become very flawed. The process needs to slow down. In order to do that, grandfather both 5th and 6th grade to allow more time for this process. And also add more members of the community, the redistricting committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Probably won't be that brief.
Please.
Marissa McGettigan from Richboro. Okay. Just a few things I want to say. First, I've talked to many of you. Actually, I appreciate your emails back. I am not someone who's necessarily opposed to redistricting. I do realize that it's maybe in the best interest of this district. However, I want to make sure that our elected officials are providing the community with their very best effort and understanding of the full situation and the data before making the decision. It's been brought up that the committee that was established, the perception of the community is that it is not an unbiased committee. I've heard from several of you that parents in a redistricting situation are more upset by this than the children. And I say exactly. So you put those parents on a committee to make a unbiased decision about the district. That just cannot happen. So then we look to the administration to lead them in their effort and to the board to vote on it. It is your responsibility. It is not the responsibility of the angered and passionate parents. They're looking out for no one but themselves. It is not a mere coincidence, as you stated in your minutes, that members of the committee have never, none of them will be redistricted. It's not a surprise to any of us. In addition, individuals who live in the affected areas did in fact submit applications and were not chosen to be on the committee. I'm sure there's many reasons that go into that, but again, you can see how this looks to the public as a whole. There are many ideas that came from families, people who are affected, not affected, people that have children still in school and not, that have come to you here tonight in emails and in other forums. I'm asking that you take the time to listen and weigh the options appropriately. I hope that you are looking toward the future and perhaps considering a wider redistricting change to better solve our overcrowding in the elementary schools, so that this pain of the redistricting will not happen year after year after year. Some of the recommendations have been brought to you tonight, such as choice in the middle or in the high school. I know that you've come and you've said that it could be a transportation issue. That's fine. If you say that it's a transportation issue, we will accept that. However, we want the data and the documentation to show that. That is what's been missing in all of this activity. Skip ahead. While there may not have been an official redistricting for 12 years, and I'm sure the district is very pleased with it, there has been a constant splitting of the Richboro community again and again and again. I have not lived in the community as long as many people have, but it's my understanding that it has taken the brunt of the district's equalizing between north and south, back and forth. I do commend the board for recognizing the absurdity of splitting the school, but what I'm unclear about is the commitment to never split a school again, because that is right now what you're doing to Richboro Elementary. There are many of us that are willing to move for the best interest of the district, as long as those moves are made based on facts and considered in the best interest of our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to, my solicitor pointed out, I need a motion to approve the minutes from our January 18th meeting. So moved. Second. Very good. Unless there's any objection, I'll ask for the secretary to record the minutes with unanimous consent. Hearing no objection. Very good. We have two items for discussion. Based on the community's presence today, we're going to take them in the reverse order. And we'll speak first about redistricting, but I will ask the parents after we talk about redistricting. I would appreciate if you stick around for the second motion we're talking about tonight. We have a Senate bill before the state of Pennsylvania, and we would like you to understand some of the consequences of that Senate bill so that you might be able to advocate with the district going forward. But first, I'll turn it over to Dr. Elliott with regard to discussion about redistricting. Really? Okay.
Thank you.
Could the guys turn the mic? Am I? Okay. I'm good. Is it me? Oh. Oh, me? All right. I'll go louder.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Grubb. First, I want to say, and I know many folks that have made public comment have thanked the committee and recognized the hard work that this redistricting committee has been doing. And I want to reiterate that and really emphasize that amount of time that the members of this committee have dedicated, the evenings they have given up, the hours I know they have spent outside of committee meetings thinking and processing, and their dedication to really trying to come up with the best option possible is something that they are to be commended for, and I think it's important to restate that again. That said, at this time, we know that in order to move forward with the plan to redistrict our current sixth graders to their middle school for next year, we needed to make a decision about redistricting by the end of February. At this time, the committee is not going to be ready to bring a proposal to the board and have that ready for a board vote by the end of February. So what we are asking for from the board is that we have some more time to further refine the process and finish our work. And that would mean that we need to make a decision about what to do with our current sixth graders as we are starting in March, transition activities and program planning meetings that will be happening at the middle schools. And we want to make sure we give those students some clarity and some conclusion on what's going to be happening for them next year.
Now, at the last meeting, we talked about, there was a question about whether we should grandfather at last meeting or wait for the work of the committee and to come forward. And so this is, am I speaking louder? Thank you. I just don't want to sound like I'm angry, okay? So I just don't take that. So at our last meeting, we had said we would look for the administration to come forward. So you're at this point recommending that the sixth graders, the class of 2004, continue in their present sending areas through graduation, including the sixth grade who would attend Richboro Middle School, will now be attending Holland?
That's correct. So our recommendation would be that what we call the class of 2024, remain in their current sending pattern. So students who would normally be attending Richboro Middle School next year as a seventh grader will go to Holland Middle School and then on to South. Students who would be attending Holland Middle School will stay in Holland Middle School and go to South. Students who would be attending Newtown Middle School will stay in Newtown Middle School and then go on to North through graduation.
Comments?
Do we need a motion?
I wanted to see if there was a feeling for the board. We have a motion suggested.
Can we talk first?
Yeah, that's what I was asking before we make.
Usually you make a motion and then you have discussion.
Well, it's discussion
so
actually first, and then.
I don't care,
It's an item for
just
discussion.
trying to understand what we're doing.
That's fine.
So, Dr. Elliott, we're going, Richboro Middle School at the end of this year still closes as a middle school.
That's correct.
Let's just be very clear about that. So that, my only question is, have you looked at what the numbers are going to look like at Holland Middle School in doing this?
Yes, we have looked at the numbers, and I know Mr. Desko has probably a more accurate. It's about what we estimate 960
We're getting
students.
very close.
And the
but you
capacity is 980, so it is very close, yes.
Okay.
Would we entertain a motion? Will someone make a motion for this? Sure.
I'll make a motion.
Please do.
I make a motion that the current sixth grade known.
It's written down on your agenda. Read
Oh.
the form of the motion.
Oh, people write the words for me. I'm gonna figure it out myself. All right, so whoever sees it should do it, because I don't see it.
It's section B, right at the bottom under admin content.
I move to keep the current sixth graders known as the class of 2024 in their present sending areas through graduation, with the current sixth grade who would have attended Richboro Middle School will now be attending Holland Middle School.
Second.
This, as that motion's out, one of the considerations that comes before us, it was raised many times from the speakers this evening about the quality of the demographer. This is redistricting the sixth graders, or not redistricting, but making this motion around the sixth graders to allow the district more time to come up with a plan. And I think the elephant head on the table right now is, does that include acquiring a new demographer? And I believe the general consensus as through conversations with the administration is that that is the intention of the board. Many board members would like to acquire a new demographer for this. Is that correct as well?
I'll be happy to speak.
Well, I'm doing it now because the two things kind of ride together. We could vote the first motion, but
let's have some discussion.
Yeah, and I think that should be that should be a motion, because there should be absolute direction to the administration, to the public.
I don't disagree. My point simply is voting on this motion relies in some regard on, are we accepting what, why are we delaying and not trying to tie the two together? We could vote.
Okay, well, I'm happy to ask to table the motion then, and make a motion to table so we can have the discussion about the demographer first and do that. Well, you just said that one.
Can we just vote on this? I mean, do we?
It's fine.
Go ahead.
If I
Stay
can-
with the sixth grade discussion.
If I can just finish my thought, it's just, you had just said that this motion is predicated on the demographer, so I was just trying to get it in order, right? It's fine. I can go either way.
That I heard this motion is predicated on the fact that we're running up against the timeline. For me, I don't like the fact that we have to make this decision, but realistically, we have to. So even though it's not optimal to put that many kids in that school and create anything that goes along with that, I'm willing to support it because of the timeline that it creates. That being said, that now gives us a little flexibility in timing to deal with the broader redistricting and keep that on track for 2019. I feel that that's important. I believe that we've got a good plan, that we should continue to work, let the committee do its work. I believe that there is a lack of confidence from the public around the demographer. I personally would rather see what the numbers look like in September against what work the committee's done. And at that point, if we've got a disconnect, then I would advocate spending the money. So that's just my personal point of view. So on this particular motion, I'm supporting grandfathering those sixth graders, continuing the conversation, which could involve, for me, a new demographer, a second check on the numbers. But I'd like to understand what a new demographer would do, what it would cost, how it would be different from the first 2 or 3 studies that we've seen.
Mr. Thorburn?
I'm supportive of this motion too, but I don't want to wait till September. If we're hiring another demographer, let's get it done, get it over with. And just make this happen, because if we wait until September, October, November, then we're looking at a December potential vote for anything redistricting wise. We're kicking the can a lot further than we thought. Dr. Elliott, if we could hire a demographer, how quickly could we do one, assuming the board's supportive, and how quickly could they confirm or not confirm the numbers we have in front of us now? Do you have any opinion?
So if we were to hire another demographer, obviously we would bring that to the board, which would be at the March meeting. So the demographer would most likely not be able to begin work until after the March board meeting. And typically it would probably be a 4 to 6 week process for the demographer to do all of their research, gather all the information he or she needs to gather, and then develop the report that we would ask of them to do.
So I'm hearing June-ish until you could get something, assuming everything fired correctly.
Potentially that we may have something from the demographer before June,
I
but
meant
then
your committee.
for the committee to then utilize that information, it would probably be maybe May or June.
Okay.
Mrs. Thomas?
So a couple things. One, starting with, we've already used the word grandfathered, which has confused, in my opinion, some of the public. But we are saying anybody from 6th grade on up will continue in their sending patterns with the fact that we're closing Richboro Middle School. That's number one. I'm fully supportive of that. Number two, no shock to anybody on this board, and I doubt anybody in the audience. I don't care if we trash the information from Sundance and start with new. So I won't go on about that. But I would fully favor, and I do think you two may be miscommunicated, but you can correct me. I think the idea is to hire the demographer now, as soon as possible, and have them begin the work. But what I agree with Mr. Block, what I think you were saying is, however, that work gets done, that assumes a certain number of enrollment next September. And there has to be a check in September to say, these 2 demographers expected this number. How close are we? And are we materially different that it impacts the work that's been done? Because last year, we all know, we had information in June and we made a decision, and then we had enrollment numbers in September and we had to change that decision. Nobody on this board, I know, and nor does anybody in the community, want us to do that again.
I'm agreeing with you.
I think you can do the work and have the information, and then I would hope we'd look at the numbers that come in September that are reality, and then I would hope we would then choose, if the committee comes back with 2 maps or 1 map or whatever, this board then has the responsibility to say, this is what we look at, and I would hope we would then go into the community like we did when we were looking at Rolling Hills and have community meetings to say, these are the proposals, this is what we're doing, this is the problem we're solving for, this is the solution, this is the data it's based on. It's never going to make everybody happy, as everyone said, But that, if you do that and kids are moving, then you need to start talk about transition planning in the October timeframe, so those kids have an opportunity to work with the school district to transition. I think that is the timeline that I personally support. So I think you both were kind of saying that. I don't know, Andy, if you were saying wait till September to hire.
I wasn't saying that.
You want to wait till September to hire the demographer?
I said that's one possibility. I would love to understand what a new demographer would do that is different to justify spending the money. I understand that there's a credibility problem, and I think that investigating a new demographer that says we will do this much differently would sway me to vote for that. But if they were going to do it the same, then I would have to think about it.
Let me allow Mr. Tate to join the conversation.
Yeah, that's just to respond.
Okay, I thought, I didn't realize that's what you're saying, so I
for me,
misunderstood.
the sixth grade piece is done. The demographer is a discussion that we should continue to have, but I'd like not the committee stop doing their work.
I'm fully supportive of the motion on the table. And I'm also, and I suggested previously that we try to find a second demographer to evaluate the work of Sundance, and the timing didn't work earlier this year to do that. It wasn't feasible. So I still support the idea of exploring a second demographer. But my question to Dr. Elliott is, what do you see as the optimal timing for potentially enlisting a second demographer? Does it make sense to do it, to bring somebody in May and June to do a report absent the October enrollment figures that are certainly going to inform our decision, to your point, Mrs. Thomas, and Mr. Block made the same point. Would it be better if we're going to hire a second demographer to wait until fall? Do you need that second report now?
I think there are a couple things that you want to consider. First of all, you made the point about the numbers and the enrollment numbers in the fall. One of the challenges with the timing of hiring a demographer is the numbers that they use to create their enrollment projections. And if you want the data to be something that you're going to use to compare one demographer's work to another demographer's work, comparing work that's not using the same numbers is not going to be a fair comparison, because you'll have some different numbers, potentially, that you cannot then say this is truly comparing apples to apples. So the challenge then is hiring a demographer now. You'll be using the same numbers, or they will be using the same numbers, and the challenge will be what will happen when those numbers come to the district, and what is the board looking for with regard to those numbers, and what counts as comparable enough that the numbers are good, or not, that we're not happy with the numbers, and then having to decide which demographer's numbers are the numbers we should use. Looking at our actual enrollment and comparing that to the demographer's projection may be a better way to kind of use as a test, which I think speaks a little bit to Dr. Thorwart's point of having those numbers also as a test. So it's kind of weighing what are the different possibilities, and then figuring out what the board feels is the best direction. Do we start with a demographer now and know that we're comparing, but then have a discussion or figure out, well, how are we going to know which numbers are the numbers to use? Or do we wait and look at the actuals, and we could also hire a demographer now, continue the work we're doing, and then look at the actual numbers in September, October, and then really confirm our redistricting plan as well.
It's to Dr. Elliott's point, it's like trying to decide who's going to be in the playoffs. If you want to compare the guy who figures it out in week 13 from the guy who figured it out the first week of the year, those aren't going to be fair assessments. So in essence, what I hear you saying, I guess, is you're going to set them back to both be at the same starting point. Because if they try and predict next year from 3 months before, it's It's a much easier task, potentially. Okay. Huh?
I thought when the subject several months ago came up, and I do believe Mr. Tate was the one who raised it, was a question of would we be interested or willing to consider bringing in another demographer to check the work, to verify the work, to give the public and this board a greater sense of comfort with the numbers as they existed. Am I correct in that?
No, that was a discussion, but I think the feedback was that if you bring the new demographer in, the one that we spoke to would need to do everything over again. So
That's correct. Yeah, they don't look at someone else's projections and check to see if they would agree with them. They would do their own study.
And Dr. Elliott, I'm sorry, I don't know if you have the answer, but just for, I mean, if it comes down to, public peace of mind here, what's the cost, just so I can kind of weigh that for the demographer study approximately?
Well, our current contract was with Sundance was $22,000. So you're probably looking in the $25,000 range, but don't know for certain.
Yeah, I don't feel like we have a choice. It is a matter of the timing, certainly. My personal preference would be sooner rather than later, rather than wait to find ourselves in a situation in the fall that we are starting from ground zero.
Mr. Violet?
So first I have a question. And so this is a discussion item. I understand there's a motion on the table and we're discussing the motion. But are we going to have an opportunity for a broader discussion around redistricting before we move on? Or is it going to be just this motion and then perhaps a subsequent motion about the demographer? Because I have comments, I'm just wondering when to make.
Okay, we'll finish this one, then which is really, I wanted to have the two together. We will have a discussion around, do we acquire a demographer or not? And it can be part of that conversation. Or
No, I get that. I have general comments about redistricting, the redistricting committee, things like that. I don't want to cloud this motion with those comments if it's not necessary. So it's a discussion item on the agenda. I just want to make sure we're going to have time, or we're going to allow time for discussion. I want to make sure I'm understanding it. Outside of the motions, discussion outside of the motions. Does that make sense to you?
It does. We also we can also bring that up at old business or further down the line. But we have a number of items on the agenda I want to try and get through.
I agree, but we have many members of the community who may not stick around for old business at the very end of the agenda. So, okay, let me comment on this motion. So I'm in full support of the motion. And since we are talking about the demographer as far as it applies to this, I think it's vital that we replace the demographer now. When I do calculations in my business, I typically add the numbers or do the calculation twice. And if I have the same calculation, I'm fine. If I don't, I go for a third, right? So if the new demographer comes in and agrees with now and agrees with the Sundance findings, then we've given confidence to the community. So Sundance was correct. Or if they don't, then we have also given confidence to the community because we brought another person in. So it's about, as I said before, it's about the community having confidence in a very difficult process. Someone is going to move schools, right? Children across the district are going to move schools. And what we're hearing over and over again is we want to understand the process and we want to be able to get behind it. We may not be happy with it, but we want to understand it and not constantly question, well, why are they doing this? Why didn't they look at this? This doesn't make sense. We want to take that nonsensical part of it away. And I think the first step that we do is replace the demographer now. Yes, to Wendy's point, I agree with you 100%, Wendy. We have to check those numbers come September. What does the enrollment really look like? Because we may not have an issue with HMS come September. We don't know. Holland Middle School. So to the point of the motion and then leading into the demographer, I support the motion, but it is, to me, dependent on the fact that we have a new demographer.
I was one of the people that didn't want a new demographer in the past. I'll get closer, sorry. And that was because of timing. By grandfathering these sixth graders, the timing has slacked a little bit. So to echo what my fellow board members have said, this will give us a little bit of confidence. I have some concern about what if they're radically different, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So I don't like spending $20,000 or $25,000 unnecessarily, but I think this is necessary to help the community as a whole. And I'll second Mark's. In the end, children are going to move. It's the nature of what we're doing. So,
For me, the 6th grade thing, I'm good with. I'm also okay with hiring a second demographer, but I think Dr. Elliott points out a complexity. We'll have to deal with it, which is we don't have the criteria for establishing, and Mr. Bialik hinted towards it, which is if they agree, that's an easy decision. If they disagree, how much they disagree, and is it consequential, is it statistically significant, as would typically be the question. If they disagree a lot, which one was right? It is not my job to defend any demographer, but I do want to make one point. People have said the demographer we used was wrong. Time has yet to tell. We will know in 2-3 years if the demographer was wrong. We will have made decisions. We will probably, based on the will of the board, it sounds that we're going to hire another demographer, and I'm good with that because I think it is important to develop confidence. But for those people who say the demographer was wrong, it has yet to be seen because the kids aren't there. We had someone this evening stand before us and tell us about what the population would be at Holland Middle School and at Newtown Middle School based on certain things. And it's going down. And all I could think about as that person spoke to us was, gee, then we should have been closing an elementary school because those numbers are going down. But that's the exact opposite of what the demographer ultimately turned around. So I have people who agree with the demographer, who say the demographer was wrong, and then point to the same conclusion that he had, which was said to be wrong, and use that as a defense. So it is, I am not trying to be controversial, but this is some of the things I hear as a board member sitting here. So for me, at this point, I don't believe there's anybody who's going to contradict if I were to ask for approval, probably with unanimous consent, of the 6th grade motion. Would I have any objection to unanimous consent to the 6th grade motion? By the way, for those people who are interested, Mrs. Brooks had clearly expressed her interest in approving the 6th grade motion, absent this discourse tonight at our academic standard, so I don't remember which meeting, one of our board meetings. So while she is not present and she doesn't vote, her intent was certainly to vote in the affirmative of grandfather in 6th grade, or whatever term we use. So without an objection, I'm going to move that the secretary record with unanimous consent to the motion for keeping the 6th grade class of 2024 in the present sending areas through graduation. Now to the second question, which we can discuss at this.
Motion passed.
Yes.
We just said
unanimous consent. So the second question before us was whether we hire a demographer. To the question that had been raised from the community about how come you didn't hire one before, following our last meeting, the committee met, looked through the things, saw what they could do, had a discussion, and that's why we didn't meet between the last meeting and now, so we could not have hired a demographer. It was a function of the way the board meets. So I asked the board, would they want to entertain a motion around directing the administration? We're not hiring them tonight because we don't know who they are or how much they want to charge. We can either do it by direction or by motion to direct the administration to obtain quotes from competent demographers and present them and we can bring them up to another committee meeting to discuss them. But I don't know if we need to vote on that. We can direct the administration without motion.
So Mr. Grubb, to that point, and I'm okay with that, assuming that there's ultimately a vote on whether we use and which we use. Hopefully there's multiple. So I'll support the intention to go out and get one. But I would ask the administration to ensure that as part of their proposals, define how they would do. So when we make this decision, that we're understanding how their methodology could be different in order to do that. And then another question, and if you want to get to it after this kind of goes around, is what is, if we're going to go out and do this, what happens to work that the committee is doing based on, or what's the administration's opinion on the work the committee is doing today? Does it stop? Does it continue? If it continues, what does it look like? And maybe there's not an answer for that right now.
I think what we would need to do, Mr. Desko and I would need to sit down, depending on the board's direction tonight, and kind of think about what do we need to do, and we would connect with the committee at that point and kind of figure out what our next steps would be with their work.
Is it safe to say that they could probably use a break?
Yes, I would say
Okay.
they could use a break.
So this gives them a little bit.
All right, so, Mr. Violet.
Yeah. So I think I hear you saying that you're going to have a motion, right?
Well, we were going to direct the administration to.
I would ask to have a motion so that we're very clear that this is the direction we're going. There's no confusion in the public. I don't, we had direction to look for a demographer to check the numbers before, and there was confusion what the outcome was of that. So we want to give the administration guidance in the form of a motion. That's my opinion. I'll be happy to make the motion. And I lost my other thought.
I'm fine with that. Our policy.
Can I remember my thought? I just remember. Can I just? I'm so sorry.
I actually waited for you to finish.
I know. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Write it down.
Just so you're clear, Mark, if a motion is made, our standing direction then starts another round of public comment now, before the motion is voted. And that's going to, so that's why giving the administration direction, but yeah, I believe they're going to get direction sufficient, so.
Well, let me just say, I'm okay with public comment. The other thing I'd like to do is put a timeline on it for the response back. Not saying that the administration won't come back, but 60 days, something like that. That gives the committee a chance to take a break for 60 days. That gives us a window of, if you need longer, I'm fine with that, but I just don't want it to be indefinite.
I was looking, this is just me, and I was trying to talk without words, without sound to Mrs. McKee, which was, I was trying to figure out if we got the demographer proposals back for the March 8th academic standards meeting.
I'm fine with that.
That's
Which
what
is a public forum on March 8th.
Well, we actually don't have academic standards on March 8th. The meeting is, I believe, Monday, March 5th, or?
March 5th, Thursday,
Yes.
March 5th.
Well, Monday, March 5th will be the parent panel. So instead of academic standards, which would be typically the second Thursday, we usually at this time of year hold our parent panel, which is a joint meeting of academic standards and the superintendent's PTO advisory council.
I might suggest that we consider a special meeting if we're going to go this route. I don't want to see us in a position where, if it's possible, it leaks through the summer, because folks don't like that. And if this is what we're going to do, let's move with reasonable pace, do it responsibly.
Right, today's the 15th. I'm trying to figure out when they can get proposals back and then have the board see them.
I could shake loose part of the facilities meeting on March the 8th.
March the 8th?
That's facilities and finance.
Facilities and finance, we could,
Well, finance is first.
no, it's not. So,
All right.
but we could do something like that if
Could we bring, whether we make a motion or give you direction, I think the intent is whether it to be March 8th, if we could have the proposals back to March 8th. The way we can advertise and also make sure people are aware of it. And it we may might happen to be here for it,
That's fine.
That happens too. If your intent on a motion, Mr. Violet, you're welcome to make a motion.
Yeah, I would make a motion whether you want me to or not. I mean, no, with all due, I don't mean disrespect, but I think it's something that needs a motion, and we're going to we should make a motion. If there's no second, so be it. But I am prepared to make a motion. Do you have something drafted or? Okay, I can, it's okay. I have something, but what was the date we wanted it by? The March 8th? Okay.
Wait. She has something.
Okay.
I didn't do it.
Oh.
Okay. Is it okay?
Go ahead and make it one.
Just
I'll
read
take
yours.
it. Yeah.
Massage it. once it-
Let me see. Can I take a look at it before I read it?
Making Capone crazy.
I'm just making 2 changes here. Actually, can I just read mine? Is that okay? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to direct the administration to do a search for a new demographer with a proposal to replace the current demographer by the March 8th facilities meeting. Is that good?
Kyle, second.
Can you restate your motion?
Sure, my motion was, I asked for a motion to direct the administration to do a search for a new demographer with a proposal to replace the current demographer by at the March 8th facilities meeting.
Is it a second?
You're
But
not,
wait,
you're
wait.
not asking
To
for
replace.
You're
We're not asking to
You're
replace.
asking for a proposal.
That's a
No,
proposal.
no.
You're asking just for a proposal
You're asking for a proposal
to be considered.
That's right.
to be considered. In other words.
Do
you're
a
not
search
asking-
for a new demographer with a proposal to replace the current demographer.
Okay, he has the motion. Is there a second on that?
I seconded already, Jerry.
I'm not going to vote for it because it says to look for a demographer. I want proposals from multiple qualified demographers. I want them to come back to the district, to the board, with the proposals. They can have a recommendation, but I want to see the multiple proposals. This is to search for a demographer.
And replace gives me pause.
And replace is not the
It's
intent.
asking the administration to come back with one versus multiple.
Well, the other motion said to bring a demographer to the board to continue, so it's the
I
same.
didn't write that one either.
Okay. I will be happy to amend my motion to read,
Well, now you have a motion. So you want to amend it?
I just said that, yes. So I'll be happy to amend it to say to do a search for
Proposals from.
proposals from demographers to replace the current demographer. Is that better?
Got issues where places say for potential new demographers. Making
I can't-
making it an assumption about what could happen.
Well, isn't the objective to replace the existing demographer? Isn't
No, it
that
was to
isn't that our objective? I was very specific in that word, to replace the demographer. Isn't that our objective?
For me, by example, our council is appointed by the board, our secretary is appointed by the board. We really don't appoint, so we wouldn't replace. We are simply going to hire an additional demographer or hire a demographer, and then it is our choice of how we use them. This was, I think, Dr. Thorberg's position, which is this presupposition that they will replace them. Because if they give you a number that you're totally ill at ease with, you've now appointed them, if you will. I just wanted to get the proposals.
Okay,
We'll decide what we
so
do.
here's what we can do. So we have a motion and a second. I've amended my motion to include the verbiage to allow for multiple proposals. Do you accept that?
I'm fine with that. I have
Okay.
concerns about the word replace as well, but I think it pins us into a corner until we see what we get back, until we know what we're coming, until we know what costs look like, until we have a sense of what comes back from these proposals. I don't know that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay, so for my motion, I specifically put the word replace in because I want a new demographer. I don't want to come back and have proposals and then say, we're staying with the old demographer. So for my motion, I'd just like to replace it. If we want to vote that motion down and somebody wants to draft another motion, I'm okay with that.
So, Mr. Just relative to that, then, we should vote Mr. Violet's motion. I think we are in maniacal agreement on the outcome. I don't like the word replace. I'll be voting against it. I would suggest that we should provide direction, which is what it sounds like this board wants, to the administration to go out and get several proposals for the new demographer to do work to sense check, or if it comes back as different, for us to decide what to do. So that's where I stand.
I have a question. So if we go with the word replace, which frankly, I'm fine with the thought, but as I understand it, it includes that we are directing the administration to also relieve Sundance of their duties. right, to end our contract with them. Would that be a correct interpretation of that motion?
Can't really say because I haven't seen the Sundance contract, so I'm not certain.
We can term it at will. We don't sign them unless we can.
And we're not paying them anymore, so terminating them. I agree, whether they're worth it or not worth it, that's not the question.
Right, they've been
Terminating them,
paid.
There's no economic benefit to the
Right,
district.
they've been paid and whatever, and they've done their work. So I was just thinking that actually to get rid of them, we might have to make a separate motion. I don't know that we could do it all with one. Anyway, I'm fine with replace.
Anybody else want to comment? We're going to call for a roll call vote, please.
If I may,
Go ahead, please.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. I believe the initial conversation was more in lines of, we want a new demographer in addition to. That was my understanding initially. Mr. Bialik, your motion is not for that purpose. Am I correct?
That's right, because we have the demographer's information that we currently have and we've been working on. That demographer's contract is
done.
Right. So that's my understanding, and it's all about. I go back to the confidence of the community. If I believe that, and it's hard not to have a disparaging sound against Sundance. They might be the best out there for this, but they've lost confidence of the many board members and the community. So with them so engaged, I just think that we're going to have issues, ongoing issues.
And that part I definitely do understand and certainly have heard that from the public as well. But again, I just want to make sure I do understand correctly. If our contract is complete with them, if they are no longer employed by the district, is it necessary to move that they be replaced? Is that necessary?
I can't say because I haven't seen, I don't know what the terms of it.
In other words, Mr. Bialik, had you other reasons in mind for that specific language? Is it in protection of some purpose, or is it to make more of a pointed statement about where we want to go with the new demography?
It's just a more active, like not a passive statement. It's an affirmative statement. That's all. I just want to be clear what the intent is.
I think that it's important for the board to also consider and understand that if we replace Sundance and we hire a new demographer, in essence, we're asking this committee to start the process over again. So it's something that you need to consider, that this committee has done a lot of work, and once they get, if we're dismissing the numbers that we have from Sundance completely, when they get new numbers, they're going to have to start the process again.
I think that assumes that we're going to get different numbers, materially different numbers.
Right. I guess my question is, the word replace is in essence suggesting that we're getting rid of one and going with another.
My thought would be, if we get materially different numbers, we are going to start the process over again, in my opinion. If we don't get materially different numbers, then their work was not for anything. So the only circumstance under which I think their work goes out the door is if the numbers from the second demographer are materially different. If they are close to the same, then all the work they did can stand. So I don't see, if we hire a demographer and the numbers are materially different and we don't start over, I would question why we would be hiring the demographer to start with. I mean, that's the purpose, is to verify that the work we've done is the right work.
And when you hire the demographer, and they do the work, and you have the numbers, you have both demographers who are still engaged. That's why I'm not looking at this. Can I get a motion to table? The only reason I make a motion to table, because if we make the motion to approve, then we go through the round of public comment. The issue is not public comment. The issue is this is an aspect of what we want to do, but discussing a minutia aspect in terms of law and in terms of the contracting.
I move to table the motion.
Can I go second?
I thought you moved.
I asked it.
I'll second.
All right. Discussion on tabling?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think here's what we did. We headed down a path. We gave the public the impression that we're heading down a path. We drafted a motion. You may not agree with one word, and now instead we've said, you know what, we're going to push this aside. So we are again saying, let me finish my comment.
You're characterizing what I'm doing.
No, I'm characterizing what the board is.
Okay. You're mischaracterizing. what I'm
Mr. Grubb, you may be president, but you're not in charge of my speech.
But you're-
I am in
but
the,
don't-
I am in the
that's what I'm
middle,
saying.
excuse me, sir, I am in the middle of my comment that you interrupted.
Go ahead.
I am characterizing what the board is doing by this motion. So I believe that we should vote yes or no. If you want to rewrite the motion to bring in a new demographer, I'm happy with that. You asked me to make the motion. I made it in my verbiage, and that's what we should vote on. I think it's a mistake to table it.
That's fine. Thank you. Tabling the motion also affords the opportunity to make the motion immediately again without the word replace, which is what I think the will of the board would be to do. So the motion to table is up. Any further conversation on the motion to table? Roll call on the motion to table.
Andy Block,
Yes.
Mark Violet,
No.
Mary Ann McKee,
Yes.
Ed Tate,
Yes.
Wendy Thomas,
No.
Michael Thorold,
Yes.
Eric Rupp,
Yes.
Tom McKessie,
Yes.
Would someone like to make an alternate motion?
I'll take a shot at it. I'd like to make a motion to direct the administration, bring back a series or a multiple set of demographers by presentations to offer demographic studies for the board for the purpose of redistricting
At the March.
at the March 8th facilities meeting.
Second.
Discussion?
Mary
Mary Ann.
Ann.
Discussion.
I think we've given Dr. Elliott a tremendous amount of direction here. Bring us some quotes for some demographers. Quotes is plural if you can, for the March 8th meeting, because we want to keep moving on this. If no one disagree, if anyone disagrees, please say, but that's what we're doing here.
I have a question. So what's the purpose of the quotes that are coming before the board?
At that point, you want me, from my perspective?
No, well, if we're directing it to Dr. Elliott, I would ask her.
They're coming before the board. They're going to
Okay.
be presented to the board, and the board will review them and decide if we intend to hire one of those to provide demographic services to the school board and the administration in support of a redistricting effort. That's what they're doing. They're not, there's no commitment that will change. They're bringing, if the numbers are terrible, the prices are terrible, the quality of the work, it does not seem to be suitable, that we have not already decided that we're going to go with one, we will have to continue our search, I guess, at that point. But that's for the board to decide, not the administration.
Well, of course, so is that with Sundance still in play or not? I just don't understand by the wording of the motion.
That decision can be made by the board upon the review of new proposals, whether they wish to have as an additional one or as a replacement. But that's the decision of the board at that time, with something in hand as to the quality and qualifications of another potential democracy.
So I guess the spirit of the motion that I made was to find potential new demographer to do one of a few different things. Sense check the numbers that we have that could agree with them and build confidence in the public. Show us if by taking a different path that there's something new that we want to consider. But to go, the piece is to go out and solicit proposals for those services and how those would be done and what those would cost, so we can then determine if we want to bring that on. And it sounds like the majority of the board, by previous discussion, would want to do that, assuming they like the proposals, but I don't want to speak for that.
So one of the things to know about what a demographer does is they will also work with the committee. So whichever demographer the board chooses to use to compare numbers, replace whatever that decision is, that demographer will then need time to work with the committee, build conceptual maps, or whatever process that demographer follows to help the committee do its work.
All right, any other board comment? Because the motion was not on the agenda Our normal course of events here is to take public comment. I do ask that we keep public comment to 2 minutes. We are responsible to have public comment. We are able to define the terms of the public comment so that we have other business the board needs to do tonight. Our first speaker appears to be Nancy Carroll.
Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough, 2 minutes is fine with me. I think the word verify would have helped. I don't think the problem is not the demographer, and it certainly isn't the redistricting committee. The problem is that we had plenty of empty seats in the Northern Division and the grade schools, and you decided to add more. If you take the seats away that you added and put them down at Rolling Hills, I think you'll have a very different outcome and that the community would be happy with. And think about it. If we we have so many buildings that need work, bond rates are going up. It is better to do and build where we're already starting to build these seats. And I suggest that we add those seats to Rolling Hills, and then you can move around the Southern Division and overcrowding of Hillcrest, everybody will be closer. And then take one school and take it up to the north to even off. And we're not just talking about middle schools, but we're also talking about the high schools. Everybody says this is a middle school problem. This is a high school equity problem when you have 400 more students in South than North. That's equity. Thank you.
This is Christian. I do ask that public comment be limited to the motion before the board. We
Yes.
will later address this. This is Christian.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mark Alec so much for everything that you have been doing and for the members of this committee that have been working with us on this. And thank you, Wendy, for stepping in. It's an outrage what just happened. I cannot believe that I'm continuing to sit here and watch this. My head's ready to explode. The Sundance contract that you're running under now, they're doing it for free. You guys approved that, remember, by consensus when no one liked Sundance, but we're going to let them do it anyway because Fraser said they're doing it for free. They did it in the beginning of last year. You had a contract with them, $22,000, $24,000, and they did something wrong because we were supposed to close Wrightstown and we were supposed to close Rolling Hills. We didn't do any of that. Here we are, and we don't have a contract with them that we're paying them, so I don't understand what that was all about, and I don't understand why the administration doesn't have that readily available. That makes no sense to me. I have so many of the administration's documents in my folder back there. You would think that you guys would have it. I don't understand why it's so difficult. Everyone has distrust in them. Let's just move forward and replace. Are you going to have this committee? These poor people, by the way, they're just parents in the community. 30 of them continue to meet with Sundance. I'm hoping that's going to be clarified. You're not going to have them continue meeting with Sundance if you're intending on, we're not allowed to use the word replace, but I'm going to use it, replacing them. We are eventually replacing them, so I'm not sure why there's such a problem with Mark's word. I look forward to seeing the proposals. I know that different demographers have different ways of formulating the numbers, and perhaps they will take your guidance because I know they take guidance from the board, and I hope that that will all be transparent. I would like to make a suggestion that it's all listed on the website, that maybe even prior to coming here, when you receive it, that the community can receive it so we can be prepared also. Thank you.
Mrs. Heenan.
Bernadette Heenan. I have both a question and a recommendation for the board. One, I'd like to ask if any of you have any kind of history with demography. Have you ever been involved with any kind of project with demography? Because my question is, who established the criteria for utilizing Sundance? Was it the board that selected Sundance? Who exactly selected Sundance? And how did we enter into this? My next question would be, did anybody ever reach out to the Bucks County Planning? Because I don't believe Sundance did. And I think this would be a great resource for this board to reach out to Bucks County Planning to possibly have them come in and do some type of presentation for this board and administration. it's very difficult for you to establish criteria at this point. And now that you're basically changing lanes, so to speak. So my recommendation would be Bucks County Planning is an incredible resource. I work very closely with them with open space preservation in the county. And I'm sure they would be more than happy to come in to work with the school district and administration. Any feedback on that? I'd also like to share that while Sundance pulled specific comprehensive township plans relating to this redistricting, no one actually called anybody from Bucks County Planning. And our other school districts work very closely with Bucks County Planning. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Mrs. Hanna. Mr. Wachowski.
Dennis Wachowski from Village Shires. I wanted to question the demographer that was used back when it was decided to build the middle schools to the same. Was the demographer used when it was decided to build the middle schools to the same specs, both 980 for each school? If that is the case, was Sundance that demographer? Second, can we make sure we don't use that demographer again going forward? Because obviously they didn't make the right call of closing Richboro, making two schools the same size when the community is in those areas, 55% down one end, 45% the other end. With the committee, I don't believe I saw a listserv. I heard that the committee meeting was canceled last night, but I didn't receive a listserv informing the public that this was canceled. So I waited all day on Wednesday to find out what the notes were, and I didn't receive anything. Was a listserv sent out to anybody in the public? Can we improve on the listserv that's sent out with more of a detail of what's actually discussed to inform the public a little more instead of Sally and Jane went to recess together? I mean, it's kind of a generic same listserv weekly that isn't very informative to the public. With a new demographer being sought, I would ask that we give the committee the option to relieve themselves from the committee. They've done a great job. I think that this is extending longer than what they committed to when they originally got into it in October. So giving them the option to relieve themselves from the committee. I know it's been some hardships in the public between committee members and committee members that they may want to step off the committee. Can a new application process be put in place to have new members come onto the committee, especially in areas that have been being affected by the proposed maps that are out? And once the new demographer comes on, can we be more transparent with the maps that are sent to the committee so the public has more input instead of waiting just for a forum comes where we're all separated in separate rooms? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wachowski. Mr. DeYoung.
It's Brian DeYoung from Village Shires again. Again, I kind of want to echo what some of my predecessors have said. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a noble suggestion that the committee does deserve a break and a chance for everyone to kind of catch their breath and kind of reanalyze and reassess. I want to basically kind of comment that I think moving forward with some new numbers from a new demographer gives a couple opportunities, not only to the board, but to the community as well. Number one, I think it's going to give a relief to some of the members or the parents that have been serving on the committee and some of the administrators on the committee for a chance of more clarity. We can move forward with these new numbers and provide a little more clarity about the committee meeting process. It relieves some of the pressure that those folks are feeling that they're getting from their constituents that that are largely in the dark as to what's going on in these meetings. It also will kind of, use to supplant or give the opportunity for the people that aren't participating in the meeting or aren't members of the committee themselves to be satisfied in that there's a lot more clarity being involved. That's really all I have to say. Just thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. DeYoung. Ms. DeFinis.
Quick note, I would like to also thank the committee for their hard work, but however, many of us don't agree with how
the administration set up this committee, so I'd like to make a motion to allow the Richboro neighborhoods and Village Shire neighborhoods to join this as representatives for the committee. It would also show transparency. We can bring that back to our neighborhoods and perhaps add appropriate non-biased taxpayers to this committee. I'd also like to ask for multiple community forums if we are taking a pause, so we can collect information all together, not separated in the different rooms, because we just felt like we were alone. And I think for, again, transparency, which is so important in this process, let us all hear each other from all different schools and respect each other in the same space. And also with the demographer, I would just say, please hire a local demographer that knows this area and not a demographer from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you. And I forgot your name.
Bill Kronberger, Newtown Township. With regards to possibly hiring you, vetting you, set of demographers, I know it's been brought up in previous meetings that Sundance didn't take into consideration any new developments. I think it's very important that that would be in the guidelines. You know, Spring Mill Country Club is going to be bringing anywhere from, I hear, 184 to 254 homes into the community. So if we're not taking just that one into account, we're doing all this remodeling, redistricting, you know, we're going to be 5 years down the line and moving kids around again. You know, nobody wants that. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Board discussion.
Could we just ask for the motion to be read back? Is that possible? The one Mr. Block made.
Yes, please.
Pull the microphone down. Thank you.
I don't have it all. I know it, I have a multiple, looking for multiple proposals to come and make a presentation to the board. And then on March 8th, the facilities committee.
Well, I made a motion to direct the administration to go solicit multiple proposals to provide demographic services to the district for the purposes of redistricting. And to come to the March 8th meeting.
All right. Ask for a roll call vote. And to explain, Miss Rice does use the recorded minutes, the recorded videos of these to make sure that she has all the votes correct and all the verbiage correct, because we do speak quickly and quietly, apparently, sorry. So in her defense, we're voting on the motion that we've heard.
Okay, Marianne McKee,
Yes.
Ed Tate,
Yes.
Wendy Thomas,
Yes.
Michael Thorwald,
Yes.
Gerald Grupp,
Yes.
Kyle McKessie,
Yes.
Andy Block,
Yes.
Mark Violet.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you to the public for helping us move quickly through that.
Mr. Grubb, can I just make a comment?
Please do.
Hindsight's 20/20. It's clear that we have always have an opportunity to communicate more effectively. We can never be perfect. As we take this pause, I would like us to think about how we can do that. Done a terrific job, but clearly there's folks who aren't getting the message or who are getting the wrong message. During public comment, there were several things that were mentioned that might not have been completely accurate. So I want to make sure that the public is getting the information from us, and it's the right information. And like I said, I think that we've done a good job, but clearly there's an opportunity for us to do better. So as we take this pause, let's think about how the committee operates so that we can do a better job of that if it's possible. I think we've got some good suggestions tonight. I'll leave it to you guys to figure out how you take from that.
And I do appreciate everyone staying on for the next item. Go ahead.
I've got one more comment on redistricting, because I just heard pause. It's not going to be a long pause. Am I correct, Dr. Elliott? I mean, we are still on track for 2019, correct, for redistricting?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we're moving on for redistricting, this is why I asked the question earlier. I just have just a few comments before we move off. So a couple of good points were brought up tonight that I'd like to ask to be considered by the administration and the board. First of all, I did like the idea of giving the committee a break. So I don't know what the charge was to this committee, what the expectations were, what the timeline was, but I'm sure they're just like when we all get up here, can't believe the amount of time that we have to put into it. I'm sure they're very overwhelmed. So if we are going to have a pause of even 60 days by the time we interview and hopefully hire and replace the demographer, that they have an opportunity to take a break. And they may want an opportunity to relieve themselves of the position, because it could be overwhelming, I'm sure, and it might give us an opportunity to pull somebody else in from other affected areas. And that my next point being, if we know that there are pockets of the district that don't have representation, and we can expand by X number of committee members, that may be something we want to look at as well, just to be more inclusive. Now, I do believe, and again, I don't know what the charge was, and really, I understand the reasoning, but because of the feedback we're hearing about the information flow and the questions about the listserv and how it's getting out there, I don't know why we can't make the committee meetings public. The community is respectful of time. We've seen that time and time again. And I also don't know why we can't make the minutes public. So I would ask for those considerations also.
Okay. We're going to move on to item A under items for board discussion. Mr. Reinhardt, we're going to impose upon your services here to give a little background on what this is, or do we want to make a motion first? Do we prefer to have a motion made first?
I'll make the motion.
Please do.
I move to approve the resolution opposing Senate Bill 2 and ESA voucher program.
Second.
This is a Senate bill that came out of the Education Committee and voted on. And it establishes education savings accounts using state funds that are education funds for parents that want to use them almost as a voucher program for educational costs. It's based on any school that is one of the 15% lowest performing schools in the state. If you look at that, the statistics I have is that there would be 220,000 students eligible in 400 schools across 44 of the 67 counties in the state. It could potentially lose about $1.7 billion from state funding that would now go into education savings accounts that can be used for tuition, books, private education. And it is based on the average state funding, less transportation in the schools district that they're in. And that would be just dividing it by their average daily membership and the amount of money they receive. And additionally, special education students can also opt out, and they get multiplied based on their exceptionality. It's interesting to see that you may say, well, none of our schools are under the 15% of the unachieving schools, but once a parent is in the system, has an education savings account, they can renew following. So they could be residing at one point in a school that is not performing. They could move to Council Rock, and then they'd become one of our parents, and they could have their education spending account. A lot of this stuff is things that I've heard in the discussion we had with our state association went over the budget today, and information that I've read, but this is the extent of it. I will tell you, I don't know if you see all the emails coming through, but there has to be more than 100 school districts that have already approved this resolution opposing it, and there's many action committees that are also against this. It is a real voucher program that it looks like, and it is there to fund private education and will take money away from public schools. Majority of the public schools are probably, that it'll be in, at least originally, will be probably underfunded public schools. Additionally, if you read some of the comments, they believe this is more segregation and separate things, because the private schools kids would be going into can accept you or not accept you into the school. Also, it might not be enough for a socioeconomic group. Even though they'd have these accounts, they won't have enough money to go into a school anyway. So this could be providing for affluent people that can subsidize it, and this is just a way of subsidizing with public dollars. So PSBA is totally against it. My PASBO group, the Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials, are very much against it, and I think it's something that by the support I see in other school districts, I would recommend that we adopt this.
Any board comment or questions about this?
I did some research on this myself, and other than what you just said, Bob, which I didn't find elsewhere, was renewing in another school district.
Yep.
So I think you said the 15% lowest. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
18
it's
or
based
15 or
on
18?
Keystone and PSSA scores, exam scores, and I can read it in here. Let me find it. This is the criteria. Parents may apply. A parent may apply for an education savings account for school-age children who resides within an attendance area of a low-achieving public school and has been enrolled in the public school in this Commonwealth for not less than one full semester, is entering kindergarten or first grade, or participated in the program in a prior year and is renewing an agreement under subsection B by filing an application with the department in a manner and on that form. So it does say that they can renew it. You don't have to do anything once you've been approved and you used to live there. And that was pointed out to us today in our webinar with PASBO, that once you're approved, you can move and you have it.
So my struggle here is, if I was a state legislator, I don't know how I would vote for this, but as a representative of Council Rock School District, I find it hard, being in a privileged school district, to tell parents that are struggling in a challenged school district what they can do for their children. So I would hope that the legislature will see some of the issues and they can amend this law if in fact it is transferable in that way, that someone can come from inner city Philadelphia as an example to Council Rock and still carry that money. That's objectionable. But for me, being a person at Council Rock School District, I have a hard time telling, as I said, I'm going to repeat it, a parent in a struggling school district that they can't provide a superior education for their children. So I will not be supporting this resolution.
Well, for me, one of the aspects in my entire time on the board, and probably for my life evermore, worries about education for children with disabilities. This plan winds up providing governmental funds potentially to organizations who have no obligation to take on a child with a disability. They can, Mr. Reinhardt referred to more economic strata, but this denudes that it takes away the opportunity for a child potentially to get a free and appropriate public education as required under federal law. And it just, from my perspective, it just cuts those kids out of community. And it's just, that makes it hard for me to support anything that would make that permitted. It also just, what it leaves behind when you do that, it is not a good plan. It means that people with a little bit of economic incentive take money away from the public school, combine it with their own funds to go somewhere else, and it keeps lowering the availability. Because you know what? You have seen it here time and again. What does it cost to educate a child? And my last objection to this thing is, and this is, we have a number of whereases, and I will read this portion of it. Whereas public schools are held to strict accountability standards that measure student achievement and academic progress, unlike private schools, which are not required to use the same standard assessments and reporting requirements of public schools, and provisions under Senate Bill 2 would not require participating private schools to use same standardized assessments, making comparison and evaluation of academic progress unachievable. So I will respectfully disagree that with the notion that parents have a right to send their kids to a place that just may not be educating them well. They have the right. I just don't know that we need to use tax dollars to support that. So I will be voting in the affirmative on this motion to communicate to our state Senate my disagreement with this motion, with this bill. Any other comment? Again, speaking not for her, but of her commentary on it, Mrs. Brooks also actually was one of the persons who helped to bring this forward to us. As you recall, at our December meeting or January meeting, we appointed her also to be legislatively connected to the state, and this has come forward with her recommendation as well, and she would be in agreement and has seen the form. So with that, I'll ask for a roll call vote. This would be a vote to agree to this motion and communicate to the Senate our disagreement with their intention.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Very good. Thank you. We're now going to, we have a different way of laying out. This is our first time doing it tonight. Our board is organized into many different committees. As you've seen, we now only meet as a body of a whole one time a month, and our committees run many of the discussions that happen in the background and evaluate and discuss and deliberate items. We are now going to run the rest of this meeting tonight on a committee basis with each committee presenting their committee report and then making motions for the items that came out of that committee. And we'll run through that today. So our first Academic Standards Committee is chaired by Mary Ann McKee.
I have a very brief report. The Academic Standards Committee met on February the 8th. There were just 2 agenda items, the first being the calendar for the 2018-19 school year. Mr. Desko made himself available to us to answer questions. Board members engaged in discussion on the possibility of adding Diwali as a holiday. We heard from members of the public on that topic, and Mr. Desko will be presenting us with information on the calendar shortly. The second agenda item concerned PLCs, or professional learning committees. We received a presentation from Dr. Elliott. Available to us were administrators from elementary, middle school, and high school levels to help us understand what that would look like at each of the levels. Included in the consent agenda items, there is an item to approve staff professional development related to PLCs. So concluding my report, I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items B through F as listed in the agenda under the Academic Standards Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion and with no objection, I'll ask the Secretary to record it with unanimous consent. As Mrs. McKee, you want me to take it? As Mrs. McKee alluded to, there was a discussion about the 2018-2019 school calendar. Mr. Desko, can we have make a motion here? Someone want to make a motion on that?
Sure. I move to approve the 2018-19 school calendar.
Second.
Very good. Mr. Desko, you want to give us a brief update?
Certainly. So we had the calendar before the board at the January meeting, and at that time, the board had requested that we bring it back to academic standards to consider the addition of Diwali holiday being added to this calendar. In this current calendar before you, that day was included as a day off. It is November 7th. And ultimately, from the calendar that had been shared publicly, it was the major change in addition to that was that it brought the last day of school for students to Monday, June 17th. I also put in here at the suggestion of the board that May 21st, and this can remain in or be taken out, but it's listed that May 21st, this election day, may be used as a weather makeup day should we experience significant cancellations due to weather. That was placed in so that if we're experiencing, a bad winter, that the board would have the option to include that as a school day so that we weren't extending much later into June.
Good, thank you, Mr. Desker. Comments from the board? Objections? Hearing no objection, I'll move that the 2018-2019 school calendar be accepted by unanimous consent. Continuing our theme of academic items, report from the MBIT technology, MBIT representative.
We held a meeting on Monday. First order of the agenda was the change of the guard. So Mr. Stanley Marcus replaced me as the incoming chairman. Stanley Marcus is a new school board director from New Hope Solbury School. MBIT works on a rotation. So Councilor Rock had the position for 2 years. Dr. Foster served for the first year, then myself, and we stay with a change of officers from that rotation that's set. There was, we heard from Angela Batchelor today. She did a great report on the Skills USA program. We had a great presentation by Skills USA. There was a little bit of board appreciation. They made a huge cake that was very, very good. On the agenda, we heard, we had an update of goals from the administration. There were two items that were pulled out for discussion. One was a contract issue with Xerox, and the other had to do with buying a new truck, Doug, for snow plowing and spreader removal. So there was a lot of discussion about that and financing of that vehicle. But otherwise, we were in and out in an hour, and it was an effective meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Biden. IU is represented by Denise. She is away tonight, so we'll skip that, and we're back to you, Mr. Bialik, with the Council Rock Education Foundation Liaison.
Okay, this is a big one. So the Council Rock Education Foundation, as everyone around this table and hopefully the majority of the folks listening to this know, is a vital organization. It's a 501c3 organization that helps raise money for this district to pay for programs outside of our budget. Some very, very exciting programs. There were been a lot of grants to STEM programs, and there's a rocket club, and just too many things to really list. But it's wonderful. But the big fundraiser for the year is on March 9th, beginning at 7 p.m. and going to 12 a.m. at the Fuge, and that is again a piano duel called the Duel. So that'll be at the Fuge in Warminster Township. And a band called Bonehead will also be playing. It's a lot of fun. It's tickets are $35 a piece. Everybody should buy a table. It's a lot of fun, and you should come out and join us.
Terrific, thank you. Moving on to Policy Committee, Mr. Tate.
There's no report since we haven't met in the past couple of months, but I will say we are meeting on February 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Moving on to Finance, chaired by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, we had two items on our agenda in our meeting. We went over the audited financial statements, which are in the consent agenda, and Mr. Reinhardt gave us a 5-year projection, which was very helpful, and we had a great deal of discussion around. I move on to make a motion to move that the consent agenda items B through G listed on the agenda under the Finance Committee be approved.
Second.
Any questions? Any objections? Hearing no objections, I'll ask for the secretary to report the motion passing with unanimous consent. Brings us down to personnel actions. I will ask for someone to make a motion combining both items H, personnel actions, and personal actions addendum, item J. Can someone make the motion? What?
I move to approve the personnel actions as contained in the attachments to this agenda. Furthermore, I move to approve the personnel actions addendum as contained in the attachments to this agenda.
Second.
Any questions, comments from the board? Any objection? Hearing no objection, I'll ask for the two items to be approved by unanimous consent. The next item is another item, item I, the internal connections RFP. Do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll move.
Thank you.
I move to approve RFP number 18-23, internal connections equipment in the amount of $60,526.49 to the selected vendors attached, subject to audit.
Second.
Mr. Frederickson, can you give us a quick update? This was not something, I don't believe this came before the committee, which is why we pulled it out for consent.
E-rate is a federal program that allows school districts and libraries throughout the United States to submit for reimbursement for particular purchases. In the past, it was for our telephone services. That is no longer valid. Now it is currently targeted at infrastructure equipment such as switches. This bid is for equipment if the Wrightstown project does move forward. Because it's a government program, there are timeframes in which you have to submit the bids to get potential reimbursement. Unfortunately, we got this in. The deadline is February, so we have to have this in and approved by the board. If we move forward with the Wrightstown project and we do purchase the equipment, this will allow us to submit for reimbursement up to 40% of the total amount that we spent on this equipment.
So 40% is about $24,000.
We have done this in the past and we've received reimbursement. So.
Any commentary from the board?
I have a question. So forgive me, I was reading something during your discussion. So is this solely for the new construction at Wrightstown?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm uncomfortable for me going down this direction until we have an idea of, again, where kids are coming from, and so I won't support that motion.
Other commentary? I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Michael Farward,
Yes.
Jerry Duff,
Yes.
Andy Block,
Yes.
Mark Feiler,
No.
Tom McKessie,
Yes.
Edward Tate,
Yes.
Wendy Thomas,
Yes.
Marion McKee,
Yes.
Motion passes. Move on to the Facilities Committee chaired by Dr. Thorward.
Yes, we met on February 1st, my birthday. We had an energy management update. Went through our usual facilities updates on the construction for both Newtown Middle, Holland Middle. We had some discussion on Wrightstown Elementary, Rolling Hills Elementary, and also on moving services, which you will see tonight on the consent agenda. As the two middle schools are consolidated, we've got to move people around, and so there's a big logistics endeavor going there. We had a brief discussion about capital improvement projects that will happen over the summer. Got to see some tennis court work and cracks that we're going to work on. We had a fairly lengthy discussion about custodial services after the interviews, and I'll let Mr. Taylor talk about that in a minute. And I believe Mr. Taylor has a second item he wants to discuss tonight. So before we do those, I'm going to move to approve the consent agenda items B through H as listed on the agenda under the Facilities Committee.
Second.
Is there an item you wanted Mr. Taylor to speak about or opine on?
I don't believe you need to speak about anything on the consent agenda, so I thought we'd get that taken care of.
Any objections to any of the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, I will not be voting for the item F and item H solely because of the Newtown Middle School and Holland Middle School construction projects.
All right, just so I'm clear, this is that they are being built, that the schools are closing. This is to move, well, H is to move the students to the
Teachers.
The teachers and facilities, the move the equipment. All right.
I understand that. If there's also north and south wrapped in there, it's just, I just will not be supporting those two items.
All right. So we'll ask for a roll call vote then for items B through
H.
Can't we just do it? Say with the exception of F.
Yeah. Just do a vote.
That's a roll call vote.
Yeah.
F and H. Okay. Well, we started saying, I'm sorry, I thought you were starting to break up the items.
No, it's just taking for.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Ed Tate,
Yes.
Wendy Thomas,
Yes.
Michael Thorwald,
Yes.
Gary Grubb,
Yes.
Tom McKessie,
Yes.
Andy Block,
Yes.
Mark Violet,
Yes, with the exception of items F and H.
and Marion Key.
Yes.
And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Taylor. We want to make a motion first? Okay.
Is this the item or is there another item?
Yep, there's one item here for a vote yet. I'm sorry.
I move to approve the stormwater controls and best management practices, operations, and maintenance agreement for the Newtown Middle School project between the Council Rock School District and the Newtown Township as attached to this agenda, subject to audit.
Second.
It's merely a formality. This document was not ready by the township when we approved the other land development documents at the onset of the project. It's finally worked its way through the solicitors, and it's a formality to approve the stormwater management agreement.
I'm just letting you know, I will not be voting for this also.
So we're going to go for a roll call vote on item I.
Mark Violet,
No.
Marion McKee,
Yes.
Ed Tate,
Yes.
Wendy Thomas,
Yes.
Michael Thorwald,
Yes.
Gary Grubb,
Yes.
Tom McKessie,
Yes.
Andy Block,
Yes.
All right. I know that Doug had some timely information that's not on the agenda that he wanted to bring forward right now.
Yeah, you mentioned custodial. The agreement for that is being worked on, so that'll be in front of you at the March meeting. There's not a lot more to be said about that. The other item I have tonight is last week, the ACE grant became available again. And I'm proposing, or at least putting in front of you, that we consider that for the Rolling Hills project. It's too late to consider it for Wrightstown. There's a lot that goes into that process. But for Rolling Hills, it's actually a viable option. The board direction is necessary just to say, go ahead and put it on the agenda for next meeting. The design team would have to prepare a lot of information to get this ready for the board meeting. It would be submitted March 22nd, the week after. We would approve it with an anticipated approval date of May 22nd. And it is a $2 million grant, just like we received for the middle schools. Both of the middle schools received the full $2 million at this point, so we have seen the money. We're obligated to meet LEED Gold on this project, just as we are on the others. We would have to put a decent portion of the monies toward the project to meet LEED Gold. It's a good candidate for some LEED Gold concepts. So it's, something that if there's, at least a group of you, 5 or more, that are interested in us pursuing this, I'll have the design team get started on the documentation we need to bring a formal approval to you next month. The only risk with this is if we approve it next month and we move forward and the design team submits and we get the grant and you choose not to accept the grant, the design team would want to be paid for the time that they put in to get us the grant. And that would be in the $40,000 range. If you recall, there was a fee associated with getting the grants before, and it would be the same fee if we move forward with the grant. But if we don't move forward, there'd be a lesser fee. for the efforts of the team. There's a lot of calculations and things that have to happen to prepare this.
I assume that proposal for a grant has to be school-specific, right?
It is.
So we couldn't apply for that and then use it on another building if we made another decision.
It has to be a project that's in the works. And there's specific calculations for that exact building that they have to see.
Are there any restrictions on the use of the grant?
I'm sorry, are there any?
Restrictions on the use of the grant should we win it?
If we win it, I mean, it's required that we use it for that project, of course, so.
Mr. Tate, you worked here, I believe, when we got the grants for the existing schools that we're working on. And so what happens is, it's a $2 million grant around energy conservation and ecological improvements to the school. What happens in practical reality is a $2 million grant. You wind up using it. Some of the things you're already spending money to do, you still get credit for them. Others, you may go a little further, but you're spending money that you would not have had to achieve that. So net, you tend to be somewhat ahead at the end of the day because you made some improvements which also have an enduring return to the district in terms of minimizing and reducing costs. But in that sense, and Mr. Bialik, I will get to in a moment, between now and the next meeting, will the analysts do any work that would be billable potentially? Between now and preparing?
We didn't. Obviously, they're going. Would they bill us? I guess what I'm looking for is there's some commitment that you're willing to approve this next month before they put all sorts of energies into trying to prepare something in a very short amount of time. That if you don't think there's 5 board members that are willing to consider approving this, Chuck won't approve this clearly. But if anyone else is not.
I have never seen you get so red.
Sure.
But he's wide awake.
Take it off speakerphone, check.
Mute.
Thank you.
Mute button.
Mr. Bialik, I think I was calling on you next before Chuck decided.
Well, you asked one of my questions. I'm just, I'm sitting here in the beginning thinking that's great. Yeah, well, $2 million is wonderful. But now if we don't move forward with the Rolling Hills project, then we owe money, right? And we're telling these folks that go ahead, you commit your staff and your resources and come before the board. But if we don't vote to move forward at the next meeting or move forward for the project, that's not very fair.
It's my understanding if we approve this at the next board meeting and then they move forward with the next couple months to get this grant through the ACE program, which is.
Okay, so I misunderstood you. I thought you said that you wanted kind of a consensus tonight that at the next board meeting that would be approved. And if that didn't happen, then we would potentially owe them money, right?
I will confirm what the timing is for the larger portion of the fees that they're going to invest in preparing this. There is a lot of work they have to do between now and the time they prepare that submittal. So I know that by the end of this month, by the 28th, we're actually working through the lead checklist to see if this project is a viable project for this approach, which we believe it is, but we want to make sure we're realistically going to be able to get the points we need to achieve LEED Gold. It's under the new LEED Gold program. So there's a lot of changes to the requirements, which are more stringent than they used to be. So we want to be certain. I can confirm that information before I bring it to you. And so I know that if the risk is for that board meeting, I'll make you aware of that before I would bring it, put it on the board agenda. If it's not, then I could put it on and you can make a decision knowing that at the time.
Yeah, because I think I do remember that you said that, I thought I remembered that the project wouldn't be viable for LEED Gold because of the more stringent requirements.
A lot of cost involved to go LEED Gold, but with the $2 million, it's the incentive to say, hey, we're going to give you the money to, if you want to put solar on your building to get the points you need and it's a $300,000 cost, you can take it out of the $2 million. If you want to go geothermal well fields to get 16 points that you need towards the 70, you have the $500,000 from the $2 million to put toward that to do it, monies you wouldn't have had otherwise. We were fortunate on the middle schools to go with systems and components that allowed us to actually save some of that money and put it towards the projects without using all of it toward the lead, scope, which was good for us. We may use more of it on this project than we did on those, but we wouldn't exceed it to achieve lead goal.
So a follow-up question, what made us miss the window for Wrightstown?
Well, it has to be submitted, and the process is first of all, we're at 90%, nearly 90% construction documents to go out to bid. To go back, you'd have to change the entire design to meet LEED Gold. The building envelope, the roof, the HVAC systems, it would be a complete start over to try to go back and do this for that project.
And in your opinion, that's not worth the $2 million to?
I don't think so.
Mrs. Thomas, I think you want to speak.
Just say, I fully support the renovations at Rolling Hills. And I think they're important to do. And I also fully support having a LEED Gold building whenever possible. It's environmentally friendly and less expensive for the district. So, what with me?
I think my only struggle with this for me is they're going to do work that they're not under contract to do. And should something come between us between now and then, it is simply a matter of personal honor that we live to a commitment. In the corporate world, Sarbanes-Oxley, this would be not permitted. This would not be a permitted direction to a third party.
They will be preparing, I'm sure, an amendment that I would bring with the.
I'm sure, but between now and then, they're doing work.
I agree.
That's my point.
I agree.
I believe that the value of it is significant and worth it. That I think you've defined the numbers to be sub 40,000. Should we not go with it? It really comes down to it. And I appreciate Mr. Bialik's perspective on it, which is it's a little bit of a gut check if you don't think you want to move ahead with a project. Committing more money to it in advance of that decision is questionable. But any other comments or conversation?
When is our next facilities meeting?
March 8th.
Which is not that far away.
We can't wait till March 8th to approve it. They have to dive in. And it has to be submitted March 22nd. We'd approve it the 15th. They'd have 7 days to turn that approval around and get it submitted. They have to start. It's the kind of window, you get a very short window when these opportunities come up that were longer.
Let me ask the question this way, because we're not going to vote it because we don't have anything to vote on. And I know that there's one on the table already. Is there anyone who would object to allowing Mr. Taylor to work with our persons to move forward and to prepare the documents so we could approve them? I believe I know that. I suspect, Mr. Bialik, I won't speak for you, but I suspect you object to that.
Yeah, but only for the reason that we don't know if we're moving forward with the project. That's all. And to be in good faith, I think it's great to have LEED Gold certification if we're going to do the renovations, if the renovations make sense based on the capacity of the school and where the kids are coming from. But that's my only objection.
And I'm in the same camp as Mr. Bialik, because we've been several other votes.
Well, at that point, then I'm down to, with one board member absent, I'm down to 6 who would express an opinion here that, if we're not going to do it, we're not going to do it. So that's, anybody else want to be on the fence?
I'm on the fence too.
Down to 5.
I would like to, but we're committing before we've committed here.
When I count and say down to 5, Mrs. Brooks has not expressed an opinion one way or the other. This was not something that had come up while she was present, so she has not expressed an opinion on this. I seem to be speaking for her a lot tonight, but she's expressed opinions on things. So we're down to 5.
I support moving forward.
No, I would too. So.
As would I.
Jerry, let me do this. If there's no cost involved from now to that board meeting to bring it to you for the approval, and the cost would be after that point, then it's a no-brainer, right?
If Rick
Because it's just a yes or no that night.
is willing to work it on his dime,
So I'll confirm that.
allows, then I don't think anyone here would object to his doing the work.
I'll
You know,
confirm
while we may
that.
not ultimately approve it.
If the majority of the costs are after that fact and they're willing to put that time in to take us to that point,
Without
great.
an excess premium.
So I would certainly not commit to anything that would cost us money. I'll find out, and if I can bring it to you, I will. If it's going to cost us the money, it sounds like it's.
It's on the fence, so you can't do it.
Okay.
Everybody good with that? We're okay. Have we moved through all the approvals? Sorry.
That's all I had, Jeff.
Very good. We have a list in here for board items. We had moved some things around. We're going to go a little out of order and look for old business or new business first because of the public may have comments about our old or new business. Anybody have old business to discuss or reopen? Hearing none. New business, new items to come forward? Hearing none. It is our third round of public comment for the evening. We are limited to 30 minutes as total public comment. Not going to there so many people present. Please contain your comments to 3 minutes and say your name and where you're from as you start your comments.
Shall I wait for the clock?
So, just begin. I'll tell you. Go ahead, start.
Says I'm a trainee 04. All right. 3 minutes though, we got now. Says 2.
I got you on 3. Keep going.
Okay. Thank you. Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough. I like the new way you're doing the board meeting where the committee meetings give a report and then what you voted out of that. 2, I like your report from MBIT. I think they do wonderful work there, and I would like you to see if they have some videos of some of the work of the children, doing the work of the different branches that we could put on our TV channel. And I also saw that they offer adult classes, and they're very inexpensive. And I think there's a need for that in the community. And I'd like to see if those adult class offerings could be put in our newsletter so that the people in our community wouldn't have to open the newspaper to the right page to find out about them. Then the next thing is STEM. I'd like to thank the Education Foundation for all the work they do for STEM. And I'd like us to have a report on that, again, in the newsletter, all the grants they've given over the years that have put STEM in our schools. And I'd also like STEM to be in our budget in a way so we can see how much they're contributing to how much the taxpayers are contributing to STEM. Because one of the reasons I want to have efficiencies in buildings is so that we can improve academics and not have to depend on donations. Then I would like us to, when we get the new demographer, to clearly have objectives to the redistricting board of, what is your highest priority? Is it to save money as it was for us in 2014 and make buildings more efficient? Or is it to keep community schools as it's written, although this didn't happen, over having a school K-6 where there's hardly any students there? So you could decide, but have it up front. I think it's the board's decision. And once you have those objectives, then I think you'll make things that everybody is happy with. I would like to thank the audience for pointing out how we can't hear. The next time I see you, I'll be a year older. And as I get older, my hearing isn't as good. And I often cannot hear things. I don't hear a word Mary Ann McGee said tonight. I'm sure it was brilliant, but I'll have to go home and watch it. So there are some people who you can hear, always hear Mr. Block. Doesn't matter where he's sitting. I'd like you to look at improving the sound on this, this room. Thank you.
Dennis Polkowski, Village Hires. Just want to reiterate that it sounds like with going forward with these grants that you're looking for, it sounds like, once again, we're putting the cart before the horse. We're putting these projects in place with redesigning Hillcrest, redesigning Rolling Hills, redesigning Wrightstown, before we know how many students are going to be there. Is it beneficial to expand on these buildings? I asked that no expansion be done to Wrightstown. That money gets looked into expanding more of Holland Middle School without expanding the footprint, but expanding inside the building itself to obtain more classrooms to handle the population in the South. In reference to the committee meetings for the redistricting, I asked that the 16 maps that were originally proposed be released to the public so that we can have more feedback. With all the feedback you had after the public forum, I feel that it was extremely helpful with the redistricting committee in trying to make their decisions moving forward. Can those maps be released that were originally given to them, that were guided for the redistricting committee, so that you can get more public comment moving forward to help move the process along? And that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Christian.
I'm going to be much calmer. I apologize. And I do let the emotions get the best of me. My kids were facing, as I said last time, looking at going to North and South at the same time as a mom and a taxi driver to them. That was a concern to me. So thank you for taking care of the 6th graders tonight. I know my son's waiting up till I get home so we could talk about it. He's had a lot of anxiety about it. The rumors that go through school, you're never seeing your friends again, all of those lovely things that children like to say to each other, they have been doing to the 6th graders. So thank you for taking that anxiety away from them. At least they know when they go to school tomorrow, well, they're not going to school, thanks, 4-day weekend with the kids, on Tuesday, that the kids that they are with, they will stay with. So thank you. And thank you to all the members. I know we've bombarded you with questions and meetings, and my goodness, I've had coffee with more of you more times than I can count now. But I think the process was not very clear to everyone, and it started off with that terrible forum that was at South, and it just set the tone. It really, when you divided everybody into the rooms, it just made everyone feel that you were hiding something, or, and I'm not saying you were, but it just gave everyone the wrong impression of where this was going. I do think that transparency is key, and I don't know if it was on purpose or it just turned out that way, but there's no updates on the website. The committee, committee members don't talk to friends now because they don't want to be felt like they don't want to be in the middle of what's going on. We need more information. The maps would be a great idea to release, perhaps the information that Sundance has that was given to the committee, since it appears they're going to be starting from scratch again. Let the community know where the mindset is. What did Sundance think should happen and why? What is the why to this redistricting plan? The 220 kids, why? Why there? Why the little section in Village Shires and Richboro? It doesn't make sense to anyone, and it's just led to such frustration. Everyone's frustrated. They don't know what to do. It doesn't make sense. And when something doesn't make sense, you're just looking for answers and answers, and that's why we keep bombarding you. And we still don't have any answers, and hopefully getting this other demographer, it will help. But I do hope that it's transparent. I know Mark Bialik had said to have it be open. If it could be open, it would relieve all of this. Everyone would understand. And I know the parents with the younger kids have said to me, which I don't agree, I would like to keep all the kids together in their communities. If they understood the process, they wouldn't be so frustrated. No one understands the process right now. There's no information. The administration needs to give the community the answers that they need so that they can accept it, advise their kids, and move on. If it needs to be done, if it's the fiscal responsible, if it's something that needs to be done by the board to the community, they understand that. But it needs to be transparent. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Sure, if I could just, that point of fact, or that Mr. Desko is going to verify, people keep referencing models or referencing maps. So I guess Mike, sorry. Oh, Nancy, you were wrong.
I still are good.
He can hear you. You're not talking loud enough that my kids at home can hear.
Mark did. So I just, people are referencing that maps weren't out there. My understanding, and I could be wrong, so if I stand corrected, then suggest those models together, but haven't the models that Sundel's done?
The preliminary 16, I don't believe they were.
There's one now.
The
But on the website, on the
recommendation-
redistricting hub, Sundel's models?
No, but some of the, I believe in master capital planning, there are some of the preliminary conceptual models, so no maps at that point.
Okay.
All of his predictions are online.
Zicky, we're not trying to delay you.
I see there's a clock here now. I didn't see that before. I don't do this very often. I just want to thank you again and just remind everybody, I have no skin in the game, but I do have a wealth of information on what happened to the Richborough Middle School kids all those years ago. I have a son that was not a part of the split. He had graduated before the split happened. I had 2 children that went after the split, but I had 5 kids that did experience the split, and I think that makes my experience, you know, something that should count. That's why I stand here. And that's why I won't go away. But because of that experience, I always will be of the mindset that you have to do everything in your power to not let that ever happen again. I know, you know, we've had 6 years since the split, and it's been beautiful for these kids. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that we could, if we could find any other solution, not try for that first. I know I live in the same home with my husband, Bob, but when I heard those numbers tonight, maybe because we weren't home, or maybe I did really hear them for the first time, and I heard that the numbers decreased, it just confuses me even more. I'm confused. Why would we talk about community schools and building onto a school and yet taking a Wrightstown community out of that school? Just a lot of confusion. And I guess really with all that being said, I just want the parents that are left here to know, and anybody that's listening, or maybe you people on the board who have no idea what happened all those years ago, I would love to be a source of information for people if they have questions, because there's real stories and they're not pretty. And I think that the kids who have experienced it, their voices need to be heard, and I'm willing to say it. And those that were on the board, you know, you can always verify some of what I know. But for those that were not on the board, it's worth maybe asking me a question or two, or seeking those answers, because they're important. Thank you again.
Thank you. And we come to the end. I kind of went through new business, old business. Is there any board general comment, observations of the community?
Sorry, just real quick. I just want to say I had an opportunity to visit the, I don't know how new it is, the district website. Maybe I just haven't had a chance to get on there. But it was fabulous. It looked so nice. And I'm looking at you because I think that you probably had something to do with it, right, Susan? So that's all. It's just very refreshing and very exciting to see. So nice job.
And I just want to, we started off the discussion this evening with Dr. Elliott providing some insights into the safety in our school district. I'll close with that as well, which is our history, and the history actually, you know, it's a terrible tragedy that happened in Florida. And as things come out, people realize there were signals, they heard things, they didn't react to them. December 2012, we had a signal in the district and we reacted to it. Did we avert something? You'll never know, but we certainly didn't have something. So I'll leave it as we started, which is the biggest security feature we have in the school district is communications among each other and escalating items. If you hear it, if it seems a little ill at ease, escalate it. I spoke with a member of our chief of police today. That's their, you know, the time to solve a problem is not when you have to be physical about it. The time to solve a problem is when you can get in with the things Dr. Elliott spoke about, counseling, CARES teams. So just stay alert, stay aware, and communicate when you hear something or hear something. With that, we're going to be adjourned. Thank you all for coming tonight.